A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
Five bells. Stand by all stations.
Attention! All districts, a 5-alarm fire. 5 bells, move in immediately.
That's it. Let's go!
Let's go! Firefighters! Presenting Firefighters, the true-to-life story of our unsung heroes who stand ready to ride by day or night against our most murderous enemy, the demon of fire. In just a moment, we'll join Chief Cody and rookie fireman Tim Collins aboard the fire launch, speeding closer and closer toward danger in the middle of the harbor. Off their port bow, the tugboat is struggling bravely against wind and tide, its steel cable taut against the weight of the clumsy barge which it tows. To their stern, the fireboat moves more slowly in the wake of the launch, ready to take up the task if the crew aboard the smaller boat should fail. All eyes are on the small cloud of smoke lifting from the barge, and they're worried eyes, for these firefighters know the cargo it contains. Now, in just a minute, we'll move right up there to the scene of action. Let's go, firefighters. Let's get aboard that fast-moving fire launch with Chief Cody and Private Tim Collins as they speed toward the tugboat and the heavy-laden barge which it is towing. You'll recall how a routine visit to the fireboat, planned as a surprise for Tim's young brother Jimmy, had turned into an honest-to-gosh surprise for all concerned when a sudden alarm sent all hands to their stations. The small fire on the barge might be merely routine except for one thing. It's carrying 35,000 gallons of oil. Now, as Tim looks back, you can see his young brother standing beside Captain Jarvis on the bridge of the fireboat in the distance. And he's glad the boy is not with him and Chief Cody on the launch. And he suddenly hears the chief say,
"Did you see that, Tim? Aboard the barge?"
Oh, looks pretty much the same to me, Chief Cody.
The color of the smoke changed suddenly. Getting heavier, blacker, I'd say.
Oh, you're right, sir. Say, do you think the fire's spread, that maybe it's finally reaching the cargo of oil?
I just hope we find out before it's too late, son.
Oh, we've got to get there and get to work on that before it really catches on.
Yeah, but that isn't exactly what bothers me, Tim.
Oh, then you're worried about the possibility Captain Jarvis had in the back of his mind, that the whole barge might go up any minute, that we'll be too late.
No. Did you ever see an oil tank go up in flames, son? Billowing black clouds of smoke, and underneath a solid mass of flame that gobbles up anything it touches.
You mean that barge ahead of us will be like that?
Well, of course. And that's what bothers me. Not that we'll be too early or too late, but that we'll climb on board that barge at the exact time it decides to shoot the works.
Oh, good grief, I never thought of that.
Well, I suppose we should be thankful it isn't gasoline.
I can't see much choice myself, sir, between terrific explosion and going up in a puff of smoke.
Oh, me either, son. You know, this is one of these times I think we earn our pay.
Yes, sir. Captain Jarvis thought of every possibility.
Well, he thought of this one, too. Only he couldn't bring himself to mention it. This launch only carries a small crew to do a specialized kind of job. But each life is a terrible responsibility for him.
Chief, the barge.
Turn around! Swing away from that barge. She's going up.
Oh, we're too late, Chief. It all seemed to go up at once.
Yeah. See what I mean about being on it?
Yes, sir. Just a mass of flames from one end to the other. Lucky we weren't any closer, Chief. Look at that burning oil spilling over the side. Looks like the harbor was on fire.
Hey, you at the wheel. Whatever the lingo is for getting this sea-going hook and ladder over to the tugboat, consider it set.
Gee, I wonder what they're thinking on board the fireboat right now.
They're thinking that all the water they can pour from those monitors isn't much help in this case.
Yes, sir. It's up to us to continue the fight from the tugboat under that plan Captain Jarvis drew up, just in case.
Yeah, that blazing floating mass has got to be kept away from the waterfront now, Tim.
And that means Mike Halloran has got to keep his tug on the job no matter what happens. You think we're in a spot, Chief?
We will be. Once we get aboard that tug, she's too doggone close to that inferno for comfort. We'll be in a spot, all right, Tim. You might even say a hot spot.
And Chief Cody is right. The slow speed of the tug is not even checked as he and Tim are put aboard. Quickly, they move to the stern, where big Mike Halloran stands. The intense heat from the nearby barge causes sweat to pour from his face, but he brushes it out of his eyes, and then he bellows.
If you've let out as much cable as you can, Jim, stand by and keep your eyes open. I don't care how hot it gets back here. You cut us loose, and I'll have your height. Captain Jarvis was right, Tim. The skipper's a good man.
Yes, sir, that's a fact, Chief. The temptation to cut loose and get away from here would be plenty understandable.
Wait till it really begins to get hot. Oh, here he comes.
Okay, gents. What's on your minds? Too bad that launch didn't reach us in time.
Sorry about that, Captain Halloran, but it wasn't in the cards. Oh, this is Private Collins. I'm Chief Cody.
Well, when Captain Jarvis sends me help, he sure makes the high brass, eh?
He needs every man of his own crew for the job ahead, Captain Halloran. The Chief just happened to be aboard.
Don't get sore, son. Glad you're here. How's it look?
That roaring sea of flames in the barge, you may have a fire breaking out here any minute. Got extinguishers?
Sure an inspector would have my scalp if I didn't. You two men by the rail, break out the extinguishers. Post yourselves so you can see if we're going to need them.
Next, Chief. Captain Jarvis anticipated what might happen, Mike. That's why we're here. Now, he's figured out a plan of action which he wants you to follow.
He did say, Chief, that the captain here might have the same thing in mind.
We'll see. Let's go forward to my quarters. Get out of this heat a minute. Watch your step.
Right.
Good advice. It's beginning to look like the middle of the night with that thick black smoke pouring around us.
Captain Jarvis tells me the tide is such that we're being pulled toward that waterfront property on our right.
If you mean off to starboard, you're right, Chief.
Well, if that barge is allowed to drift in there, ships, docks, warehouses, plants, a few $1 million worth of property will go up in smoke.
As long as we can hang on to her, she won't drift, son.
Of course, it's possible the heat may get more than is humanly possible to bear, or that the tug may burst into flames herself.
We'll stick, Chief. Only one thing can stop us.
Yes, I know. In here?
Right.
Good. I want you to take a look at the harbor chart Tom Jarvis had us bring.
I know this harbor like the palm of my hand.
Well, that's not the point, Captain Halloran. Let me help you unroll that map, Chief.
All right.
Yeah, now.
Yeah. Now, you see this island at the mouth of the harbor? The one Captain Jarvis marked?
Yeah. Open water all around. The perfect place to beach that confounded barge if we can make it. We'll be bucking both wind and tide, you know, Chief.
Now, Jarvis and the fireboat will tag along, but the chances of cutting down that fire are pretty slim.
Yeah. They can pump the harbor dry and water still won't mix with oil.
Well, how about their foamite equipment, Chief?
Well, they'll do what they can, but smothering that entire barge is an impossible job.
Well, this is one time when my battered old tug is a darn sight more important than your fireboat.
Well, I can't argue that. At the moment, it's up to you, Mike, and you alone. If you can beach that barge before we have a waterfront tragedy on our hands...
Well, there's only one thing can prevent my trying, Chief.
What's that, Captain?
That blazing scow getting loose from us, Collins. Well, I better set our course with the man at the wheel. If you need me for anything else, just holler.
A short time later, Chief Cody and Tim stand near the stern of the tug, the perspiration pouring from them. The chief has an anxious eye on the cable stretched taut between the tug and the barge, but he merely says,
I expect we're about the hottest thing on the seven seas.
Well, you could say that again, Chief.
If we were on dry land, Kim, if we could only turn a couple of companies to work on that barge.
Yes, sir. Makes you feel kind of helpless just standing around, doesn't it, Chief?
Here comes Mike Halloran. Everything under control, Captain?
Not until we get that scow on the beach, it isn't, Chief.
Shipping seems to be giving us a wide berth, huh?
I can't blame 'em. Wish we'd worked our way farther away from those docks than we have.
We're getting there, Mike.
Wind, tide, everything against us. Well, what's the matter, Tim? Hurt your hand?
Oh, no, sir, no. Believe it or not, I just leaned my hand against this railing and darn near burned it.
Say, feel that, Chief. Hey, Jim! Can't you pay out any more of that cable? The more distance between us and the barge, the better.
The safer, I'd say. Your tug won't be much help if it bursts into flame.
How about that? Couldn't Captain Jarvis on the fireboat use those monitors to give us a curtain of water?
There's sure enough wasting them on that barge.
Oh, forget it. Get away from that cable, Jim. Come on, boys. We better move out of the way, too.
Are you afraid it's going to snap?
Mike and I have been afraid of that since we arrived, son.
Look, did you forget the other end of that is attached to the barge?
Oh, say, once that burning oil spreads enough to go to work on it...
Right. If you can burn your hand on the railing this far away. Imagine what that heat is doing to the cable.
You mean what it did? Not as much snap as appeared. I'm sorry, Chief. That puts us out of the race.
It's humanly impossible to attach another cable.
In that inferno?
Well, we'd better get back to the fireboat, Tim. That's where the action starts now.
Yes, sir, but what on earth can they do, Chief? The barge is free to drift with the wind and the tide.
Captain Jarvis knows his business, Tim. We'll help him.
You're helpless, Chief. The only thing that counts now is keeping that barge away from the docks. How are you going to do that?
I don't know. But if she's allowed to drift another 10 minutes, we're going to have the biggest waterfront fire on record. She's got to be stopped.
But already the flaming barge has swung around under the force of the wind and tide. Momentarily, it will be drifting slowly toward the shore to endanger life and property. A flaming mass on the loose. How can anyone or anything get close enough to check its progress? Well, to find out, don't miss the next exciting episode of The Firefighters. In a minute, Chief Bob Cody will be back to tell all of you boys and girls how you can help the firefighters in your own town. Right now, a message you'll want to hear. Now, Chief Bob Cody with a message for the Firefighters Brigade. Chief Cody.
Attention, firefighters. This is Chief Cody. You've just seen that water isn't always the answer to putting out a fire. So if you're ever faced with the danger of burning fat or oil, don't throw water on it. Now, here's what you do. Use baking soda or salt, or find a metal cover of some kind to smother the flames. Smother them. That's the same principle as our using foam to put out a fire of that type. Well, that's all. Until next time, this is Chief Cody saying, so long.
Fire Chief Cody and the young rookie fireman Tim Collins will be back on the same station the next time you hear...
That's it. Let's roll! Let's go! Firefighters!
Autolite and its 98,000 dealers bring you Mr. Herbert Marshall in tonight's presentation of Suspense.
Tonight, Autolite presents a story based on fact and written by a master of suspense. An adaptation of the 19th century Bourne murder case called The Dead Alive. The author, Wilkie Collins. Our star, Mr. Herbert Marshall.
Hey, Wilcox, how you hitting them, kiddo?
Hello, Stan. How's our bouncing, bantam, and brainy baseball manager?
Feeling like a home run, Harlow. Purring along like a set of those Autolite spark plugs of yours.
Yeah, couldn't understand you better, Stan. Those ignition-engineered Autolite spark plugs are designed for the smoothest and most economical performance money can buy.
Wouldn't use any other, Harlow. They're real major league.
Thank you, Stan. Friends, if your car isn't giving you the performance it should, why not have your spark plugs checked by your nearest Autolite spark plug dealer? He's equipped to give you expert cleaning and adjustment. And if those spark plugs are worn or need replacing, he'll install a set of famous ignition-engineered Autolite spark plugs, either standard or resistor type. To quickly locate your Autolite spark plug dealer, phone Western Union by number and ask for Operator 25. And remember, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite.
And now, Autolite presents The Dead Alive, starring Mr. Herbert Marshall, hoping once again to keep you in suspense.
How did the doctor put it to me back there in London? Your disease, Mr. Lefranc, is overwork. Your cure is rest. Your alternative is death. Nice choice of words there, but not to be ignored. For any excitement stirred sudden, unbearable pains in my head. The trip was restful, though the prospect of visiting a country just 5 years beyond a civil war was a little disturbing. The long-standing invitation of my mother's distant relative appeared to hold a promise of friendship and hospitality. The very thing for a nerve-ridden English barrister. I boarded a railroad car at Boston, which deposited me at Morwick Station. The countryside viewed from the station was as flat, as monotonous as any that the earth can show. If to be cured meant, in my case, to be dull, I picked the very place for the purpose.
Mr. Philip DeFrank.
Oh, yes, of course. You must be Cousin Silas.
That's right. I didn't mean to startle you.
No. I was fascinated by this very interesting countryside of yours.
Let's start off on an honest footing. This view is uninspired, Philip. But it's good farmland. That's most important. Is this your luggage?
No, just these bags. Here, I'll take the big one.
That's all right. You carry the 2 small bags.
Oh, but your hand, that bandage, it must be painful.
It's just a scratch. He couldn't hurt me. The carriage is this way.
Our ride to Meadowcroft Farm passed, for the most part, in silence. And silence seemed most appropriate as we drove through a grove of stunted, twisted trees. On the road ahead, a short, wiry little man walked towards the house. He glanced over his shoulder, then casually angled to let us pass. But something went wrong with our horse, for he swerved towards the man. Watch out! Hey! You nearly killed that man.
Next time you'll move out of the way faster.
But you led the horse directly at him.
No matter. That man was John Jago, my overseer. Not a very nice man, Philip. Not nice at all.
Then why do you keep him?
Unfortunately, Father left a controlling interest in this estate to my sister. And Letty feels that Jago can run things better than I can.
That's still no reason. You might have killed the man.
In which case I would have given him the sort of burial I'd give my dog. Not my favorite dog, mind you.
A gray house, like a huge toad, squatted massively at the end of the road. 3 barking hounds chased our carriage up to the front porch. My cousin sent them scampering as we dismounted. A melancholy, middle-aged woman without visible attraction of any sort waited for us in the hallway.
Cousin Philip, I trust the Lord sent you an easy voyage.
A delightful voyage, Cousin Letty. It's very good of you to have me.
Thank my father, rest his soul. We shall do our best to honor the invitation he extended to your branch of the family. Silas, did you pass Mr. Jago on your way up?
Yes, I passed him.
You might have been good enough to offer him a lift.
I did, after a fashion. This way, Philip. I'll show you to your room.
Supper is at 8, Cousin Philip. We start exactly on the hour.
Silas left me in a clean, almost sterile room. To pass the time, I made a game of searching for some dust. It was depressing not to find any. I paced, I worried, read, and generally tried to keep the gloom of the house from sinking into my bones. It was useless. By 8 o'clock, I was morosely trying to decide whether to go down to dinner or to repack and leave. My stomach made the decision for me. I walked out of my room and into the loveliest creature I've ever seen.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, my fault. I shouldn't run down hallways. Of course, you're Philip.
Of course. But they told me nothing about you.
Well, I don't think they're quite sure of how to classify me. I'm Naomi Colebrook. We'd better go downstairs. We'll miss dinner.
Are you visiting to Miss Colebrook?
Oh, no, I've been here over 6 months now. I'm a vague sort of relative. Letty and Silas took me in after my parents passed away.
Oh, that was very good of them.
Yes, it was. But I am glad to have someone else here now.
Is anything wrong?
Well, there are tensions in this house. You may feel them.
I already have. Something most unpleasant about it all.
Oh, please don't let it drive you away. I have to talk to somebody. You see,
Naomi, where are you?
We're coming, Silas. We'll talk later.
Dinner started off as a quiet affair. Naomi, Silas, Letty and myself were there, of course. The 5th person was John Jago, the fellow we'd almost run down. He acknowledged the introduction to me, then lapsed into silence. The only time I saw any animation on his face was when he glanced at Naomi. Silas noticed it, too.
You find Miss Naomi's face interesting, Mr. Jago.
I beg your pardon.
Silas, please, don't start in again.
It's offensive for the help to be staring at you like that.
Your imagination is being overworked again, Silas.
Dear Letty, you're so fond of Mr. Jago. Isn't there one small pang of jealousy at his interest in Naomi?
Silas.
I'm sorry, Miss Letty. When your brother is in one of these moods, it's best that I retire. Good night.
Good riddance.
There was no need for that, Silas.
You're too even-tempered, Naomi. Let's put it to our guest here. Philip, what did you think of that surly fellow's behavior?
Why, I don't know. As to looking at Miss Naomi's face, it constantly attracts my own gaze.
Oh. Does it?
Yes. Does that make it necessary for me to leave the table?
Let's both go for a walk, Philip. I've had enough of this for one evening.
But, Naomi...
Let her be. Go, Cousin Philip. I wish to talk to my brother alone.
The danger signal in my head and those flashes of pain did not slacken until we, Naomi and I, were deep within the grove of trees that surrounded the house. The moon was full, its rays filtering through the dense overhead growth of twisted branches. We walked slowly towards a pale green glow that diffused the gray night ahead of us.
What's wrong, Philip? Your face is...
It's passing. It's pain. The doctor warned me to avoid excitement.
Silas starts up with everyone.
And he turns his anger upon poor Mr. Jago.
Yes, they had a terrible fight the other day. Mr. Jago had to use a knife to defend himself.
He won't bother me.
I'm not too sure. He was furious with you at dinner.
I refuse to allow anybody to interfere with the pleasure I take from your company. But, what's causing that green mist ahead?
Oh, that's a natural lime kiln. They say it's been burning for centuries.
There's a hypnotic quality about this green pit. I can't take my eyes from it.
It terrifies me. I keep imagining what would happen if someone were to fall in there.
Oh, they should put a fence about it.
That.
What?
There, by the trees. Someone's watching us.
Huh? Who's that?
I hope I'm not intruding.
What do you want, Mr. Jago?
I don't wish to disturb you or this gentleman, but I must speak to you, Miss Naomi, in private.
This is hardly the manner to approach, eavesdropping from behind a tree.
Oh, no, sir. I've just been walking through this grove and came upon you, but I must talk to this lady.
But won't it hold until tomorrow?
It would be a great kindness on your part, a very great kindness if you'll let me speak before I rest tonight.
Very well. We'll go back to the house.
Not the house, miss.
Why not?
There are eyes and ears in the house, and footsteps so soft that no person can hear them.
Then we'll speak here, where we can see all about us.
Sir, if you don't mind.
I don't want to leave you here, Naomi.
Oh, I'll be quite all right, Philip. Mr. Jago will see me back to the house.
You know best. Good night, then.
Good night, and thank you.
I slept but little that night. I wanted to leave. Get away from that wretched house. But the idea of leaving Naomi there all alone was unthinkable. With the dawn, I dressed and went down to the front porch. An angry sight met my eyes. Silas, holding his walking stick like a bludgeon and waving it at Jago, while the little overseer crouched before him like a snarling gamecock, the wicked blade of his knife flashing in the light.
Stay back, I warn you.
You warned me. I told you to stay away from her.
She's not my style, Mr. Silas.
You impudent beggar!
Stay back! I've set my mark on you once. I may do it a second time.
I'll crush your skull!
Stop that! Here, Silas, give me that cane.
Let me go!
I said, give it to me.
You meddling fool. He's gotten away.
Just as well. He handled that knife with some knowledge. You wouldn't have fared well in that fight.
You think not, do you, Cousin Philip? May I have my stick now?
If you must have it. Here.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to walk through the grove, unless you have some objection.
So you insist on following him?
We will finish this now, Jago and I. And this is a warning to you, Cousin Philip. Leave Naomi alone, or you may have some of the same.
Neither of them had returned to the house by late afternoon. Naomi stayed in her room all day. Cousin Letty sat in her rocking chair and knitted, her eyes never leaving the front door as she waited fearfully. The ugly premonition of violent death hung about the rooms. Finally, approaching footsteps, and we watched to see who would enter.
Silas, where is Mr. Jago?
I believe we've seen the last of that one.
Did you? You haven't brought your walking stick?
No. But don't fear, Cousin Philip. I have another. Should you want to take a stroll through the grove?
Much later that night, I sat in my room, fully dressed, trying to read. The wildest thoughts were skipping frantically through my mind. Was my cousin Silas a murderer? He had all but admitted it. And yet... Someone was walking through the hall. A light, almost stealthy footstep. I opened my door as a wide-robed, ghost-like figure descended the stairway. It was Letty, her body rigid, eyes staring blindly before her. It is dangerous to rouse a sleepwalker, so I followed. Out of the house, through the grove of trees, to the mouth of the lime kiln. She stood there, trembling in the green light. As she took one further step towards the kiln, I reached out and grabbed her shoulders. Stop! It's me! It's Philip! Letty, do you understand?
Philip. He's there. Mr. Jago is there in the kiln.
How do you know?
He called to me. His voice, it came from there.
That was a dream, Letty. You walked in your sleep.
No dream. He's in there, I tell you.
There's nothing we can do. Nobody could climb down into that pit to see.
Over there, by the tree. A long pole with a mesh iron net. You'll see. Mr. Jago is in there. He told me so.
And in the black of that night, I set about the macabre task of fishing the kiln. Within the hour, I had brought up a partially burned walking stick, Jago's knife, and a small heap of charred bones.
Is bringing you Mr. Herbert Marshall in Wilkie Collins' The Dead Alive. Tonight's presentation in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Hey, Harlow, you know I signed a whole new team.
Yeah? Stan, who are they?
Why, a set of those Autolite resistor-type spark plugs, of course.
Then you're set for a winning season, Stan. Those Autolite resistor spark plugs are the greatest advance in spark plugs for automotive use in the past 2.5 decades.
Is that all? I thought they was the best in 25 years.
You're right, Stan. And that built-in Autolite resistor makes possible such advantages as double spark plug life, smoother engine performance, and quick starts. And the resistor spark plug is only one of a complete line of world-famous Autolite spark plugs, ignition-engineered for every automotive use.
That's a straight pitch, folks.
So see your nearest Autolite spark plug dealer for a spark plug check soon. He services all makes of cars, and he has ignition-engineered Autolite spark plugs, either standard or resistor type. To quickly learn his location, phone Western Union by number and ask for Operator 25. And remember, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite.
And now, Autolite brings back to our Hollywood soundstage Mr. Herbert Marshall in Elliot Lewis's production of The Dead Alive, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
On the parlor table were lying the walking stick, the knife, and the charred bones of John Jago. I'd roused Naomi and Silas, and now the four of us sat around the room, our eyes curiously avoiding the grisly pile before us. The light from the oil lamps failed to clear shadows from the dark corners of the parlor. And so we sat and waited for the silence to accuse.
I didn't kill him.
You have murder on your soul. Mr. Jago told me that, too.
Oh, in your dream, I suppose. He never cared for you, Letty. Why do you carry on so about him?
He was too shy to tell me. And now he never will. For you killed him.
That is your stick, Silas.
I stumbled near the kill. It fell in.
And the knife and the bones, Silas.
You killed him, Silas.
And make the most of it. I'm going to bed.
There's nothing more to be done tonight. We may as well all get some sleep.
I don't think I'll ever sleep again.
Or at least try, Naomi. Tomorrow we'll have to call in the magistrate. Aren't you coming, Letty?
Oh, I'll stay here with Mr. Jago.
Letty, please.
No.
Leave her, Naomi. Come.
Oh, Philip, why did it happen?
You probably know best of all.
I know nothing.
No? What did Jago say to you the other night in the garden? The police will want to know.
We've been talking. I don't recall about what. Suddenly, he seemed to go mad.
Mad? In what way?
He fell on his knees. He kissed my gown, my hand. He cried that he was in love with me.
Poor fellow. I imagine you told him it was impossible?
He wanted me to marry him. Of course it was impossible.
Silas must have found it out. That could explain the why of this murder.
Well, I can't stay here anymore.
Nor can I. Tomorrow we'll move into town until the police clear us. And then...
What then, Philip? Oh.
Good Lord, what's that?
Oh, don't leave me.
Well, it's too late to catch whoever that was.
Someone overheard us.
Yes, someone. Here, get into your room, bolt your door, and don't open it for anyone. You hear?
Philip, I'm so afraid.
Truthfully, darling, so am I. If ever a house was accursed, this was it. With madness or worse, knocking from every crevice and corner. In my room, I locked the door and went to bed. Sleep did not come easily, but it came. I must have just dropped off when some inner sense warned me of a presence in the room. Something was gliding quietly towards the bed. I half opened my eyes and caught the dark shadow of movement and the momentary flash of metal. I rolled out of bed as a knife slashed into the mattress where I'd been lying. My assailants followed me, slashing, hacking at the pillow, the chair that I held before me. I tried to get out of the door. It was still bolted. I slit the bolt, and the shadow rushed, driving me back. In terror, I threw a lamp and hit someone. It was suddenly over. The knife wielder had gone. I fired a lamp, then stood, staring at the butcher knife that lay on the floor. My being revolted in fear and anger. I was sick. Sick of this house, of my cousins, sick of waiting to be struck down in the dark. Get up, Silas.
Who's there?
Stop pretending that you're asleep.
Philip, the devil's the matter with you?
Naomi wouldn't have had you under any circumstances. What did you hope to gain by killing me?
Killing you. If I wanted to kill you, cousin, I would face up to you like a man, not strike in the dark.
Who else in this house would do a thing like that?
What of Letty?
Letty? It couldn't have been a woman.
Don't underestimate our New England women, Philip. They're strong as oxen.
You'd better come along with me while I question her.
You don't trust me?
Exactly. Letty was still in the parlor, staring at the bones of her dead lover, sitting stoically in her chair. Something had changed her, though. There was an ecstatic look about her, and for the moment her face was almost pretty. Letty, Someone just tried to kill me.
I know.
How do you know?
Mr. Jago told me you were going to die.
She won't grasp the fact that John is dead.
Oh, yes, I know he's dead. But now he's closer to me than ever. He comes to see me and talk to me.
Did you go upstairs, Letty, to my room with a knife?
Mr. Jago told me I was pretty. I asked him if I was. And he told me. He's dead now. But he's with me all the time.
Well, Philip, are you still quite positive it was I?
Naomi! I ran up the stairs, Silas at my heels. A nagging, insane thought kept tugging at my brain. Letty, Silas, and myself, we'd been together in the parlor. Then who was it? What was it? What horror was attacking Naomi in her room? Naomi! Open this door! It's me! Naomi!
Naomi, are you all right?
Stand back! I'm going to break it open!
She's not here.
The window's been smashed.
There's nobody in the yard.
Look, over through the grove, the branches sway. Something moving through there. That one again!
But who?
Or what? Silas, can your dogs track?
Of course, they're hunting dogs.
Bring them around and put them on the scent. Whatever that thing is, it has Naomi. The dogs picked up the scent and ran, baying into the tree grove. Silas and I, lanterns spraying yellow light through the darkness, followed. Somewhere ahead, there was something. Man or monster, without a mind. Suddenly, at the lime kiln, the dogs stopped howling. We saw Naomi, lying by the edge of the pit. I knelt beside her, feeling the life beat feebly through her pulse. And then, another feeling. The air parting behind me, as something crept towards my back. Something poised to push me into the kiln. I turned sharply, and the shadow flew backwards, crossing to the opposite side of the pit. The green glow stippled around the form of a man.
John Jago.
Alive.
Yes, very much so. Though it would have been nice to have Mr. Silas hanged for my murder.
Your plans for me were very much more direct.
I would kill for Miss Naomi, not just talk like Mr. Silas.
You think she'd ever look to you?
Someday, Mr. Silas, with you and your cousin dead. Oh, my, yes. Then I would return, feigning loss of memory.
It can't work out now, John. You best come along with us.
Oh, take me, sirs. Come over here.
I'll be glad to.
Wait, Silas. He's too close to the pit. A slip and we'd all be in.
Try, please. I'm a match for you both.
Mr. Jago, I hear you. I'm coming, Mr. Jago.
No. Stay back, Letty. I have no use for you anymore.
You said I was pretty, Mr. Jago. You said that to me.
Letty, don't go near him.
Keep away, you stupid ugly woman.
No. You didn't say things like that in the lime kiln. In the kiln.
Letty!
Keep back. Keep back.
Letty!
They're both gone. Poor devils. It was the next day in the carriage, riding back to town, Naomi beside me. The sight of her lovely face driving away ugly thoughts of the night before.
Is it all behind us now, Philip? All that hatred?
It's finished, my darling. There's just you and I and our future together.
A peaceful future. We'll have to watch your nerves.
Nerves? Oh, my Lord. In the excitement, I forgot all about it.
But the excitement might have killed you.
Killed! It cured me. That doctor was wrong. My life was too dull.
Then excitement is what you need.
Yes. I've been thinking about our honeymoon. There's a wonderful old castle on the Rhine. They say it's haunted.
Suspense, presented by Autolite. Tonight's star, Mr. Herbert Marshall.
This is Harlow Wilcox again, speaking for Autolite, world's largest independent manufacturer of automotive electrical equipment. Autolite is proud to serve the greatest names in the industry. That's why during these early months of 1953, the Autolite family is again saluting the leading manufacturers who install Autolite products as original equipment. As a climax to this salute series, Autolite will present on both radio and television the Easter Parade of Stars Auto Show from New York's Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Just 4 weeks from tonight, we will bring you the exciting dramatization of the only round-the-world automobile race ever run. The program will star Van Johnson and will originate from the Grand Ballroom of the Waldorf, where the auto show will be in progress. That's Monday, April 6th. And, of course, you're invited to join us next week for our regular Suspense program.
Next week, a story about heroism as we document the attempt of 3 brave men to conquer the mountain. Our star, Mr. John Hodiak. That's next week on Suspense. Suspense is produced and directed by Elliot Lewis, with music composed by Lucian Morowick and conducted by Lud Gluskin. The Dead Alive was adapted for Suspense by Sam Rolfe from the story by Wilkie Collins. In tonight's story, Mary Jane Croft is heard as Naomi, Lamont Johnson as Silas, Jeanette Nolan as Letty, and Joseph Kearns as Mr. Jago.
Herbert Marshall can currently be seen in the RKO production Angel Face. This is the CBS Radio Network.
Oboler's Plays. On the winds of the night, we bring you a story whispered in the night. 3 short plays of the ways of men, past, present, and future. First, the past. The time, one of our yesterdays. The place, the main square of the village. It had once been a tree-circled gathering point for the women and old men to sun themselves. On its clean pavements, the children had played. But now the trees stand charred and broken. Blocks of jagged masonry lie piled in empty disorder. There is no village, only hovels clustering on the edge of great shell-blasted craters. One thing alone rises complete, shining new in the early morning sun, a crudely fashioned statue of a man. And before this statue stand a small boy and a bent old man. The boy speaks.
But were there so many people before the trouble, Grandfather?
People? Yes, yes. Hundreds and hundreds of people. The square here would be filled with them of a sunny day. The old ones sitting, the young ones strolling, the children playing. Hundreds, I tell you. Hundreds.
And were there many boys like me in the village then?
Aye, that there were. Playing their games, marching around and around to the music of the band.
Band?
Aye, band. Before the trouble. The band that played and told our men they had to fight.
Fight whom, Grandfather?
Our enemies, of course. Kill or be killed, the poster said. March on the enemy for the glory of the eternal state. Oh, yes, that's what the poster said. All over the town. It's as if I hear them now. The band playing here in the square. The women talking war talk. The men seizing their guns. Aye, guns. All but one. Jan Pero. And him they hated. Hated.
Orderly! Orderly! Yes, Commandant.
That confounded band. Shut the window.
Yes, Commandant.
Now then, young man, we will settle your case.
I am waiting, Your Excellency.
Speak only when I tell you to.
As you say, Your Excellency.
Your name?
Jan Pero.
Occupation?
I am a farmer. My land is just beyond the furthest hill.
Family?
Wife and child.
According to this report, you have refused to join the armies of the state. Is that true?
I have never denied it.
Then what they say is true. You are afraid to die.
Give me a reason to die.
Reason? Are you such a fool that you have not understood what even the children in the streets are saying? That even now our enemies prepare to crush us?
That is what they say.
Enemies! They must strike them down. They must attack for the glory of our homes and wives and children.
It's such an old tune.
Eh?
My father and his father before him done started life to it.
But our enemies prepare. They hate us. Men, women, and children.
But why do our enemies hate us?
Because...
I'll tell you. Because of that great victory won in my father's time. And in that victory was sown the seeds of this new war you ask me to die in. Oh, don't you understand?
Silence. Orderly.
Where, Commandant?
The Burgomaster. Send him in.
Run, Commandant. Your Excellency, I know I'm only a farmer.
No,
but
I won't listen to you, Jan Pero. I know your sort. Talk, until a man's head spins in the middle like a top.
Burgomaster, Your Excellency.
Come in, Burgomaster. Come in.
Yes, Your Excellency. Whatever I can do for you.
You can do nothing for me. Here is your Jan Pero. See that he listens to reason. I give you 2 minutes.
Well, Jan.
Burgomaster.
Oh, you won't disgrace us, Jan.
Why won't you listen to me? If I fight, if we fight, there will be no victory.
Oh, we'll win a glorious victory.
I say win or lose, there will be no victory. The hatred fighting breeds does not die with a victory. It lives on in the hearts of the defeated.
Protect your home and loved ones, Jan.
But we have not been attacked. No, Burgomaster. Protect my son and my son's sons from dying. That's what I'll do. I will not fight. I will not fight. I will not fight.
Oh, Jan. Jan.
Do not weep, little wife.
But I heard.
What you heard were only words the Commandant squeezed to frighten me. I spoke only truth, my wife. He knows I did.
Jan, do what they say.
You want me to go to war? Because you cannot stand people's empty words?
Everyone is going, Jan. You must too.
Anna, my silly little one. You don't know what you're saying.
Do what they say, Jan. Do it.
No.
You are afraid. You are.
Anna.
Afraid to fight, to protect your home, your wife, your child. Afraid.
Yes. I am afraid.
Afraid.
But not afraid of what you think, my wife. Not afraid of the quick death of a smashing bullet in my head. No. Not afraid of the slow death, squirming in the mud of a stinking trench, with my blood pouring from me like a burning fire. I tell you, I am not afraid to die in battle, my wife. I am afraid that I might not die.
What?
I'm afraid that I'd live through this war and come back and see the years go by and watch the next war brewing. Watch my son fed with the lies they're trying to feed me. Watch the new hates growing in those other lands. The hates my rifle had helped shoot into their hearts and minds. That's what I'm afraid of, my wife. That's why I will never fight. That's why I'll never...
Jan, they're coming for you.
For me?
Oh, no.
Jan Pero.
What?
By order of the Emergency Military Tribunal, you are to be executed on the charge of high treason. That execution to take place at once. Commandant.
Well, young fellow, will you fight for peace and glory?
You have meant to shoot me?
In 3 minutes by the clock.
The wall behind me. Wall of my church.
Blindfold the prisoner.
No, wait. I want to see them. The crowd there. Look, they were my friends. You there, Eric. I see you. Why do you call me names? We were in school together. You were my friend. Please understand me. You there, Hans. Remember the long talks we had together of beauty and the brave new life? You, Hans, tell them what I mean when I say that word. No, they will not listen. You see, Commandant. Look at them. My friends. Even the thought of war. And already they are not men of the soil, men of the shops, but things of hate. And that hate will not stop when the terms of peace are signed. It cannot stop.
Your lamps! Sport ready!
Aim! No! Another moment. Brothers of my village, listen to me. Before those bullets tear me open, listen to me. I have lived with you, worked with you, all the years of my life. And if my life is ending now, here among you, that is good. Better my blood soak into this, my native soil, than in another land. My blood that flows here, ends here. But yours will flow like a great river of hate, joining the hate of our fathers and our enemies, until it is a great sea washing over all the world, blotting it out like a flood. Do not give your blood to that sea of hate, my countrymen. Do not fight, and there will be no war. Fight, and there will be no peace. For in the peace you dictate will be our children's war. And when that new war comes, it will rain from the sky, a great green choking cloud. It will blot out the village. All men will grovel in burrows beneath the ground, with their women like hunted things. The great city, the men will crash. Wolves will howl among the broken things we call our glory. Violence breeds violence, my brothers. There can be no peace, no war. There can be no peace, no war. There can...
And so he died, Jan Pero, many years ago. Died against a church wall that was dust long before the day of trouble. The day when all that he said came true, and the world went up in flames of hate.
But the statue, Grandfather.
This statue? Oh, yes. Frederick the Blind and I, we were the only men left in all the village. We made it with our own hands. Look close and read the words, my son. Read.
It says, to the memory of Jan Pero, the bravest man in all the village.
Now the second in our short plays of the ways of men. A story of the present. The scene aboard the U.S. destroyer Liberty, somewhere in the Mediterranean. It is dusk. The usual disciplined calm of the battleship has been broken for the past half hour by a minor tragedy of the sea. In the heavy fog, a small fishing skiff had been cut down by the lunging prow of the destroyer. At the moment, the senior officer is making his report to the commandant.
No doubt, sir, from the testimony of the men on deck, that not only was the skiff operating without a foghorn, but she didn't have a light on it either, fore nor aft.
That's all very well, Lieutenant. What I want to know is, how about the boy?
Oh, he's all right, sir. Not a thing wrong with him. Raising the devil good and proper, that he is, sir.
Eh? What do you mean?
Well, sir, it's a boat he wants.
A boat?
Aye, sir, a boat. The minute he hit the deck, he began yelling for a boat in place of the one we ran down.
Put him below deck until morning.
Oh, but that won't help, sir. It's the baby that's got us worried.
Baby?
Aye, sir, baby, sir. The one the lad brought with him. 10 or 12 months old is how I rate it.
Lieutenant, perhaps you're not aware that I saw the boy brought over the side. He was alone.
Aye, sir, alone, but all the time he had this kid. I mean, this baby, wrapped up snug under his coat. Didn't know it was there, we didn't. Until all at once he takes it out and starts dressing it in the dry stuff we gave him.
Well, I'll be...
Aye, sir.
Whose baby is it? Who's the boy? What was he doing out here in the fog in a small boat without running lights?
Well, that's just it, sir. He won't tell us.
Eh?
Just keeps yelling for a boat right away, quick. Kid under one arm and waving his fist, yelling to see the captain. It's one hell of a mess, sir. There, sir. Do you hear him?
Send him in.
Aye, sir. You boy. The commander will see you. In here. In here. This is him, sir. I mean, them, sir.
Very good, Lieutenant.
Aye, sir.
Come closer, boy. Boy, can't you do something about that child?
You are the captain, senor?
I'm Commander Roberts. Now, that baby, can't you do something about him? Huh?
Quiet, little flower. This is the captain. He will help us. Quiet, little sister.
Well, she certainly listens to you.
As you will listen to me, captain. A boat. You will give me a boat. I must have a boat quickly. Do not stand there.
All right, boy. It's about enough of that. You'll be taken care of.
You mean that, senor?
Certainly.
Then you will give me a boat now?
Boy, try and understand. This is a government ship. I'm sure proper compensation will be made for your loss.
The words, senor. All of them I do not understand. This I know. A boat. Give me a boat, senor. There is no time. We must go.
Stop that. Did you hear me? I said you'd be taken care of, you and your sister. We'll get you back where you belong. Is that clear?
A hole in the ground.
Eh?
A hole in the ground is good enough for me, senor. But my sister, I do not think even you would want that for her.
What are you talking about?
You said you will take us back where we came from.
Well?
The bombs made great holes, senor.
Where are you from?
Aguila.
Oh.
My sister asked you to. You will give us another boat, senor?
Your family?
I told you, senor, I told you. Hole in the ground.
I'm sorry. Aguila. It's 200 miles from the sea. Battle area. Boy, how did you manage to... You don't mind answering a few questions, do you?
Questions? Questions, senor? You ask me? No. I have questions I have wanted to ask for many days. You have gray hair. You are old. They always tell me the old are wise. So now you tell me, senor.
What?
Senor, why did they die?
Oh. Well, it's a war, boy. Difference of ideas. Someday you'll understand.
Understand, senor? What is there to understand? Pepe understood to milk the cow. Jimenez understood how to make baskets to sell in the marketplace. Teresa, she understands how to beat the clothes white on the stones of the river. Juana, how to take care of her 5 children. But war, senor. It was so good in our village. The sun so bright, the air so clear. What had we to do with war? Make me understand, senor. Why are they all dead?
Well, Civil War, as I said, difference of ideas. How can I explain?
My papa told me many things. He talked to me of a world where men think free and talk free, where everyone has his own land, not too much, and men are like brothers. Is this why my papa is dead, senor? Is this why bombs drop from the sky?
Boy, listen to me.
No, senor. You do not know. You are not wise. No one who is old is wise. I must go. Hey, boat, senor, give me my boat.
Boy.
Listen to us, senor. Our village was full of such laughter. Where is it now? Only Maruja and me. But her I take away to some place where there is nobody old and wise to drop bombs on her.
So that's where you were sailing.
See. We came so far until I found the boat. Then the sea. We were so happy. All at once your ship, so fast, I could not get us out of the way. She is so little, senor. So pretty. When she is afraid, she never cry. Just look at me like she say, brother, you take good care of me. And I will take it. I will. Give me a boat, senor. Give me a boat.
All right, boy. It'll be all right.
Senor?
This is your boat. Mine? I'll take you to a place where God willing, you and your sister will be safe.
You know such a place, senor?
Yes. We're not so old there. We haven't forgotten that liberty is not a gift, but a victory.
Look, senor. She has gone to sleep, my sister. It was because now she knows I can take care of her.
Take her outside, boy. The lieutenant will give you a place to sleep.
Gracias, senor. You are good. I thought there was no one left who was good. Gracias, senor.
Sleep well, boy. Make the following addition to message sent to flagship. Quote, in Reese skiff run down in fog. There were 2 survivors, a boy and a baby. We are proceeding on course. We are taking children home.
And now the third play. The time, 20,000 years from tomorrow.
Excuse me, please. I know it isn't polite. I can't help it. It's the funniest thing. Wait till you hear it. Absolutely the funniest thing. Yes, I'll tell you. A hoax. He tried to play a hoax on me, telling me it was an authentic record of their times and expecting me. Me to believe. No. Wait a moment. I'll start from the beginning. Really, I will. And then you laugh with me. I know you will. Well, it started like this. An old man comes to my study a little while ago, a package under his arm, and he tells me he's a student of the past. Past master of the humbug, that's what he meant. Wait until you hear it. So he has this package under his arm, and he says to me breathlessly,
Kind sir, I brought you the most wonderful relic of the past the modern world has ever known.
Really? I said, what are you talking about, and who are you? He answers,
a lonely traveler, one who wanders in far-off places.
Far-off places. And that's what he told me. And so I said, and is this that you are bringing me from one of these far-off places? He nods his head like a strutting rooster. He says,
yes, indeed. You are the greatest living scholar of the history of the old world. So it is fitting that I bring this to you.
Indeed, I said. And what have you got, and where did you find it? He says,
I was walking through the mountains beneath which the great city once stood.
Well, I said, well, he said,
as you know, thousands of years ago, there was another civilization that reached great heights.
Yes, I know. I said, certainly you're not going to teach me history, my ancient friend. He said,
oh, no, indeed. I only meant to say what I found high in the mountain It is a written record of that civilization. The first written record ever to be found.
For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I just looked at it. I said, have you gone out of your head with age, old man? I just looked at it. I said, have you gone out of your head with age, old man? Nothing is left of that prehistoric time. First the sea covered them when the dark planet swung close, and then the molten rock thrust up. It is only our theory that men had a civilization here before us. For answer, he tore the paper off the package. He said,
look, these papers. Reality, I tell you. High in the mountains inside a piece of alabaster that must have protected it from the ravages of time. Miraculously spewed up from the earth when the mountains rose up through the land. Look, sir, and read. A record of their times. A record of the ways of men 20,000 years before our civilization came into being.
Yes, he said that. And I took the book, took it in my hand, and read. For a moment, I almost believed the fraud. Strange formations of letters and strange words and meanings, but clear enough to me. Clear enough. The cleverest fraud a faker ever tried to perpetrate. Now, wait. Let me tell you what was in that historical book. He tried to tell me that he'd found the old humbug. Listen to this. First, the book said that... Wait until you hear this. First, the book said that the men of that past civilization fought about the land. You don't understand what I mean? I mean the world. They fought each other, maimed each other, bled each other over who owned what pieces of the world. Did you ever hear such nonsense? They knew how large the world was, and they knew how many men were in it. But instead of dividing it up fairly, or all owning together as one, they fought each other. Yes, bloody wars for years and years. Did you ever hear such humbug history? And that isn't all. The book said that they fought each other over race. Yes, race. And the book says the word means the difference between men. And then the book said that all men had the same origin. And yet... they killed each other over a difference they admitted didn't even exist. Oh, what a fraud, that book. And a man walked that world for a little while who said, for the glory of God, peace on earth. And he spoke truth. And men listened and said, we believe. And then went out to murder with bright music playing. Music, I tell you. And then a little man arose who said, for the glory of the state, war on earth. And he spoke lies. And men knew they were lies, and he knew they knew. But again they went out to murder with the music playing. And here's the funniest. Other men saw what was happening. And they said, let them kill. It is not to our interest. And the flame of murder came closer. And still they said, it is not our interest. As if the house were afire, and they said, we will not use water until we ourselves are burning. And here's the climax. The preposterous book said that these crazy people who filled the earth in those days had machines. Machines with which to fly through the air. Yes, really, through the air. But imagine the wonder if it were true, speeding through the air like the birds' great glistening machines to carry men to new wonders. Guess what the fraud of the book said they did with them? You'll hold your sides when you hear this. They loaded them up with horrible tearing things and flew up over the crowded places and dropped them. Yes, believe me. The humbug history tried to make me believe that was the truth. They struggled for centuries. Men studied, toiled, rivers of heartache, said the book, trying to make a healthier world for their children to live in. And then they throw poison clouds down from the sky and kill them off in tens of thousands. Kill the children. Isn't it all a joke?
These three plays of The Ways of Men were written especially for radio by Arch Oboler. The first play, Memoriam, featured Bill Johnstone. The second play, Soul Survivors, Jack Kelk and Ray Collins. And the last play, Humbug, featured Raymond Edward Johnson. Next week, we bring you Mr. Important, a sentimental fantasy with Mr. Martin Gable. Arch Oboler's Plays. On the winds of the night, we bring you a story whispered in the night. Arch Oboler's Plays are presentations of the National Broadcasting Company, RCA Building, Radio City, New York.
The Signal Oil Program, The Whistler. That whistle is your signal for the Signal Oil Program, The Whistler.
I am the Whistler. And I know many things, for I walk by night. I know many strange tales hidden in the hearts of men and women who have stepped into the shadows. Yes, I know the nameless terrors of which they dare not speak.
Yes, friends, it's time for the Signal Oil Program, The Whistler, rated tops in popularity for a longer period of time than any other West Coast program in radio history. And Signal gasoline is tops, too, tops in quality. It takes extra quality, you know, to give you extra mileage. And Signal is the famous Go Farther gasoline. So look for the Signal circle sign in yellow and black that identifies friendly dealer-owned Signal stations from Canada to Mexico. And now the Whistler's strange story. The Human Catalyst.
In the field of chemistry, there are curious substances known as catalysts. Curious in that their mere presence together with other substances causes a violent reaction in which the catalysts themselves don't take part. In a way, they simply stand on the sidelines, untouched by the reaction they cause, unaware what they've done when it's all over. There are catalysts, too, among human beings. And on the night of February 3rd on the terrace of a resort hotel in Miami Beach, a 17-year-old girl named Arlene Foster was about to become one. She didn't know it, of course, and like catalysts in chemistry, she never would. But there on the terrace, in a simple conversation with her teenage date, Arlene was preparing to step into the role.
Orville.
Yeah?
There's something I better tell you. I want to be fair, Orville.
Look, Arlene, if it's another confession, I'm just not interested. I'm crazy about you as you are.
That's just it. That's why I have to tell you now.
Vic's coming back, Orville. It's only a few weeks off.
Vic who?
Vic Stanfield. The orchestra leader that was here last year. He's bringing his band here to the hotel. Just as he promised me.
Well, what's so important about that?
But I don't want to deceive you, Orville. You see, Vic and I love each other.
Huh? What are you talking about? Why, he's an old man. He must be 30. How could
Orville, sometimes love doesn't pay any attention to ages. You see, before he left last season, Vic and I had an understanding.
At that time, Vic Stanfield was many miles from Miami Beach. Many miles away from the Catalyst. Vic was in Cleveland, Ohio, attending a funeral service, moving up when it was over to console the widow of a dear friend of his.
I do appreciate it.
Mrs. Westover, I hope you know how I feel.
Oh, you're Mr. Stanfield, aren't you?
Yes, Vic Stanfield. I was one of Carl's best friends.
Oh, yes, of course, Mr. Stanfield.
If there's anything I can do, perhaps drive you home?
Well, that's very nice of you, Mr. Stanfield.
My car is right out front. Here we are. You all right?
Yes. How was I?
Wonderful.
Wasn't easy. You don't think any of them...
No, nobody suspects a thing.
No. Well, what now?
We'll be married in a month. We'll go south with a band and spend our honeymoon in Miami.
Oh, that seems awfully fast.
Look, sweetheart, let's not get into that again. We could hold a ceremony right in that church 10 minutes from now. Let them talk all they want.
But, Vicky, don't you think
it's clean, baby. There's not a trace, not a scrap of evidence. Just relax, baby, relax. You left your husband's fatal accident up to me. Now do me another favor. Let me take care of the future, too.
With the prologue of The Human Catalyst, the Signal Oil Company is bringing you another strange story by The Whistler. Well, friends, since this is St. Patrick's Day, you've no doubt been getting your share of Killarney with your radio programs. I had thought of describing how your friends would turn green with envy when you power your car with Signal gasoline, because today's Signal drives the pings and sluggishness out of a motor, like St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. Or I thought of reminding you that your wallet would feel lucky as a four-leaf clover because of Signal's good mileage. But sure and begorra, when you buy gasoline, there's really just one thing that matters. You want to be sure that you're getting the tops in quality, the gasoline that gets top efficiency from your motor. And that's something your own speedometer can tell you, because when your motor runs more efficiently, you not only enjoy quicker starting, faster pickup, and smoother knock-free power, but also more mileage. Good reason why we're so proud of Signal's famous mileage, and why we say, to be sure of the tops in gasoline quality, there are just two things to remember. One, it takes extra quality to go farther. And two, Signal is the famous Go Farther gasoline. Begorra. And now, back to the Whistler.
Yes, it was clean, Vic. So clean that you and Thalia could flaunt your love at them. Throw it in their faces, let them think and talk all they wanted. Because you're sure that in killing Carl Westover, Vic, you committed the perfect murder. It's a month almost to the day when you and Thalia drive up the Lakeshore Highway to the little town of Fairport to be married by a justice of the peace. And that night you're on your way to Miami Beach and the new life that lies ahead for both of you. And in your complete happiness together, there's certainly no thought that each mile on the train brings you closer and closer to the Catalyst.
his way, Orville. Vic's on his way back to me.
Will you cut it out, Arlene? You're just being silly.
What's the matter, Vicky?
Huh?
Oh, you're so quiet.
Oh, I don't know. A little tired, I guess.
I'm tired, too. Happy, Vicky?
You bet. You?
You know I am. You're not worried or anything? I mean about Carl.
Look, sweetheart, forget Carl. He's gone. He's off the books.
And there's just you and me.
And that's why it's so perfect. Because we're the only two people who know. The only ones we'll ever have to worry about.
And with us forgetting it?
Right. It's all over. Your life in Cleveland, everything, just like it never happened, baby. Oh, baby, we got a lot of living to do. A long way to go together. First stop, Miami Beach.
So there it is, Vic. The aftermath of a murder you're certain is perfect. The happily ever after part of the story. It's like a chemical solution with two ingredients, quiet, inert, in a stage of precarious peace, awaiting the catalyst. Naturally, you don't know it, Vic. But as you and Thalia arrive at Miami Beach and check into your hotel suite, the little human catalyst, Arlene Foster, very close to you now, is suffering from some very shocking news.
Arlene, what in the world is the matter with you?
I'm sorry, Mother.
You haven't eaten a decent meal for a week.
You wouldn't understand.
Well, I have a pretty good idea what it is. The same thing happened last year about this time, didn't it?
It's never happened before. Anything like this, that is.
Well, if I'd have known it'd been like this when your father told me he was going to manage this hotel, I'd have stayed up north. Who is it this time? The bass player? Tenor saxophone? Or is it Victor Stanfield himself?
How can you do it? How can you say this?
Wait a minute, Arlene. I wonder if boys are any easier.
Eileen walks slowly down the hall, stops at the telephone, begins to think.
Married. Vic married. But he couldn't love her. Somebody ought to tell her what she's doing to Vic. She has no right to be his wife. He doesn't love her. He can't possibly love her. Somebody ought to call her on the telephone and... The telephone. The telephone.
Excuse me, Vic. I'll get it.
Sure.
Hello?
Mrs. Stanfield?
Yes.
There's something you should know, Mrs. Stanfield, about your husband.
Who is this?
I'd rather not say. I'm calling to tell you you made a very serious mistake. A dangerous one.
Just a minute.
Victor doesn't love you, Mrs. Stanfield. He never did. He's been in love with someone else for a long time.
See here, if you think I'm going to listen
That's
to you...
all I have to say. You may not believe it now, but you'll find out soon enough. I've told you the truth.
Well, there's something you ought to know, whoever you are. Hello? 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 Oh, the way it's kind of funny. Well, I tell Vic.
Darling, I had to run right up the minute I got off the plane.
Well, I'd have shot you if you hadn't, Jeannie. Lord, it's so good to see you. It seems like a year since we...
Vic.
Thalia, darling, this is Jeannie Long. I've mentioned her to you. Used to sing with a band.
How do you do? Yes.
Jeannie's back with us for this engagement, darling. Been a long time, huh, Jeannie? You know, Thalia, we two practically started out together. Is that right, Jeannie?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd better be getting down to my room. I've got to unpack, and you know how it is.
Take care, Vicky. See you in an hour or so.
Yeah, you bet.
She's a lovely girl, Vic.
Yeah, swell. Well, let me see, where was I? Here we are.
What's that?
There's a property assignment, darling. I meant to bring it up before this, but I just didn't get around to it. Look, I think we'd better put your property, all your assets, in fact, in my name.
What?
Don't look at me like that, darling. I'm not after your money. It's a legal thing, dear. A A way of protecting your share of Carl's estate from any stray creditors that he happened to leave kicking around, you know. I had the papers drawn up yesterday afternoon, and I... What's the matter, Phil?
Vic, give me a cigarette, will you?
Sure.
Thanks. Now, tell me, how long have you been thinking about this?
Thinking about it? Why?
I'm just curious. I think I have a right to be. There's $180,000 roughly, and property in Cleveland.
I don't like the way you said that.
Then I'm sorry. But I think you better explain it more carefully.
I was about to, my darling, when that phone call... Wait a minute. Who was that call from, Tay?
It was nothing important.
No? I think it was. Look, who do you know in town, Thalia? Who'd be calling you on the telephone, huh?
Worried, Vicky?
Maybe.
Too bad. Because I've decided I won't tell you who it was. And as far as those papers go, I just don't think I'll sign them.
Any particular reason?
I don't know. Intuition, maybe.
I think it's something else. But there's no point going into that now. I'm due downstairs in 10 minutes. Good night.
The reaction's well underway now, Vic. Something's wrong. You know it. You can feel it gnawing away inside you the rest of the evening. But you get hold of yourself when the job's over. Yes, it's ridiculous letting your imagination run away like that. Thalia's all right. She's got to be all right. She has your life in her hands. It's almost 2 a.m. when you let yourself into the dark apartment on the 10th floor, hoping she's thought it over, too. That the strange way she turned on you when you mentioned the assignment papers didn't mean what you were afraid it meant.
Thalia, you awake?
Yes.
I'm glad you are. No, skip the light. Look, Thalia, there's a few things we've got to get straight.
You sound very determined.
I am. Look, we can't afford to have any secrets between us, Thalia.
Have we?
I think we have. That phone call, for instance. Why won't you talk about it? What are you doing to me?
Maybe I should ask you the same question. What are you doing to me? Why is it suddenly necessary to sign everything over to you? That property's mine. I intend to leave it that way.
Oh. So that's it. That's what's eating you, huh?
Nothing's eating me, Vic. Maybe you never really understood me. I can be practical, too.
Oh, sure. Of course, you don't want to overlook a couple of other little considerations, like marriage, like love.
Love?
Yeah, love. Sound like you doubt that. Tell you, maybe you ought to add things up again. I plan the whole thing. I lie. I commit murder for you. I see it straight through, then suddenly it isn't enough. You're not satisfied.
I didn't say that, Vic. I understand your position quite clearly.
Then it's worse. Look, how can you talk this way when I'm out on a limb alone? Not a chance to tie you into any part of it. You try to tell me nothing has changed, that you're just being practical. What kind of understanding is that, Thalia? Is it any good for me, is it?
You're good, Vic. Convincing, very sincere. Only through it all, I can hear only one thing. The money. I want that money.
But there's a very good reason, Thalia.
Yes, so I've discovered. Good night.
Wait a minute, Thalia, wait.
Good night, Vic.
Look, mister, when you hire a private detective, you at least have to tell him what the job's all about.
Look, I've told you all you need to know, Mr. Shand.
What's wrong with your wife? You afraid she's thinking of suicide or something?
I don't know. Look, if you want the job, simply do as I ask. Follow her. Wherever she goes, follow her, and keep me informed.
Okay, mister. She'll never leave that hotel without me tagging right along.
It's a stalemate now. Both of you quiet, feeling the tenseness in the air, waiting for something to happen. Then about a week later, on a downtown street, Shand gets careless.
What do you want? Why are you following me?
Well, now, look, lady.
Don't try to deny it. I saw you yesterday, too. And the day before that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're doing it for him, aren't you? My husband.
Listen, lady, you're talking crazy. Why would your husband have someone following you?
There's a good reason.
Like what?
Money makes people do things like this.
Money?
My money. If it was his, he...
If what?
If anything happened to me. Why didn't you do it now? What are you waiting for?
Excuse me, lady. I'd better go see a guy.
Look, be reasonable, Shan.
Why didn't you level with me? Where do you get off dragging me in on a dirty deal like this?
But what's wrong?
Everything, the whole setup. I like money as much as the next guy see, and I need jobs. But I'm stepping out of this one, mister, right now. I'm getting out of here. You don't even have to pay me.
Look, I don't get you, Shan. What could
you... You heard me. I'm getting out.
It's almost out in the open now, isn't it, Dick? But not quite. Because you're not even sure what's happening. Not able to talk it all out with the one person you should go to with a problem. Because right now, she is that problem. And you're alone. That's what's so terrifying, isn't it, Vic? Your complete helplessness. And you have no way of knowing, of course, that now tonight, the band assembles on the platform as you check quickly through the evening's dance program. Thalia's facing Jeannie Long in her dressing room.
That's a very strange question, Thalia.
Under the circumstances, I don't think it is.
In any case, how I feel about Vic is my own business.
You can't expect me to believe you've never been in love with him.
That'd be pretty silly.
Yes, I think so. I think you're still in love with him.
Maybe. But why do this the hard way, Thalia? Why not ask Vic how he feels?
I know how he feels.
Well, you leave me speechless, darling.
I'm not surprised, Jeannie, but Vic might be. I'm going to settle a few things for him tonight.
Vic, could I talk to you a minute?
Not right now, Jeannie, please. Okay, boys, let's take it. 1, 2.
It's a struggle, isn't it, Vic, as the job begins? As you try to concentrate on the music and the piano in front of you, while your mind is on other things.
The money, the property is mine. I intend to leave it that way.
Those are the raw materials, aren't they, Vic? Something for a man's mind to work on. Particularly a mind like yours, with murder lying underneath everything else. Yes, you can close your eyes there at the piano and hear things like this.
I love you. Don't be ridiculous, Vicky. How annoying me. I wanted someone to do a job for me, and you came along, so...
You let me go ahead
The money, darling. The property in Cleveland. I want them. I got them. And I won't have to pay for it, will I, Vicky?
No. No, she won't get away with it.
You're trembling, aren't you, Vic? Sitting there terrified by your own thoughts. Almost afraid to think of what you might have to do to escape.
Intermission, Dick.
Huh? Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure, Jim.
And now you're going to listen to me. It's Thalia.
Thalia? What about Thalia?
Well, she said the oddest thing. Something about settling things for you tonight.
I knew it.
What?
That little...
Dick, what is it?
Settle things, huh? I'll see about that.
You know now you've got to kill her. And it has to happen fast. In the lobby outside the ballroom, you stop. Remember something that private detective said about suicide. You can make it look like suicide, Vic. Just by taking the time to set it up. Getting yourself a witness. Yes, the telephone girl will do.
Ethel.
Well, what is it, Vic?
My wife. Is she in her room?
Well, I think she went up just a little while ago.
Oh, Ethel, was she all right? Did she say anything about not disturbing her?
I don't know. Is there something wrong?
I don't know. She's been very upset lately. I don't know what it is, but the way she's acting, I'm afraid she might do something to herself. I'd better get up there right away. Thalia?
You step back, remembering somehow that you have your own key. Fumble nervously, opening the door.
Thalia?
You cross swiftly to the bedroom, glance in, wonder where she could be.
Thalia?
Turning, you catch sight of the doors to the terrace. They're both standing open, a slight breeze rustling the draperies.
Thalia, I just want to talk... What's the matter, Thalia? What are you doing out there on the terrace?
Don't you come near me. You can't do this.
But we're going to talk, Thalia. Don't back away from me.
Leave me. Leave me alone.
Thalia, look out! Stop the rail, you'll go over!
The Whistler will return in just a moment with a strange ending to tonight's story. Meantime, another word about those Oscars, which the movie industry is going to award next Saturday. On last week's Whistler, I mentioned that if they gave Oscars for gasoline, Signal would no doubt win the honors for outstanding performance. Well, by the same token, the Oscar for Best Supporting Role would surely go to Signal oil dealers for the many valuable safety services which they offer free. For instance, this month, all Signal service stations throughout the West, from Canada to Mexico, will check your fan belt and radiator hose without charge. The chances are it's been a long time since your radiator hose and fan belt were checked, because most drivers, and most service station operators too, never give a thought to these two little items until they break down completely and leave you in real trouble. Moreover, if the inspection shows your fan belt or radiator hose to be in dangerous condition, Signal dealers can in most cases replace them while you wait. So for your own peace of mind and carefree miles during the months ahead, drop into a Signal station this week for this free Signal safety service. Your friendly Signal dealer will enjoy this opportunity to demonstrate to you the more thorough, more conscientious service cars get at dealer-owned Signal service stations. And now back to the Whistler.
It's all over, Vic. In one terrible moment, as Thalia falls back over the terrace rail, and your mind whirls with a thought that here is the end product of your perfect murder. You don't know it, of course, but the human catalyst has done her work well. And all that's left as you draw back from the rail with a shudder is the realization that your own life is at stake if you don't get out of these rooms before anyone comes up. You're sure there's time, but you cross swiftly toward the door, thankful that you left the idea of suicide with the switchboard girl. She's got to back you up, Vic. It's the only hope you have now.
Mr. Stanfield? Glad I ran into you. I'm Lieutenant Harrison, Miami Police.
I don't understand.
Afraid I don't either, Stanfield. Your wife inside?
I don't know. I just stepped in the door myself.
Oh? Well, have a look, will you? You see, she called us tonight.
She what?
Called us. She was quite upset.
Oh, I know she's been acting strange lately, but I didn't
What
think...
she had to say was quite strange, Stanfield, but maybe I better step inside.
Yeah, sure, but Look, Lieutenant, what's this all about? I can't understand why
Want me to get it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes? What? Uh-huh. That must have just happened. No, it's all right. I'm with her husband now. Well, Stanfield, maybe you already know this, but just for the record, that call was to let us know that your wife's body is out on the pavement, 10 floors down.
Oh, no.
That's the terrace over there, huh? Pushed her right over the rail.
No, please, it was an accident. I can prove it was an accident.
Maybe you can, Stanfield. I don't know. You'll have your chance, of course. But when she called us just 20 minutes ago, she said she was certain you were going to kill her.
Gee, Arlene, I can't get over it.
What, Orville?
The papers today about Vic Stanfield being convicted of murder. The Miami police and that private detective both telling the jury Mrs. Stanfield said she was afraid he was going to kill her.
Oh, yes. I wonder why he did such a thing, Orville.
I don't know. Only, oh, gosh, the whole thing must have hit you pretty hard, Arlene. I mean, the way you felt about Stanfield.
Well, you know, Orville, it was terrible, but as far as anything personal between Vic and me, I guess I was just silly. You see, Orville, there's something you should know.
You mean about our going steady again?
No. Rodney Maynard and his men of music are coming here next week.
Yeah, I know that.
Yes, but... Well, Orville, there's something I've never told you about me and Rodney.
Let that whistle be your signal for the Signal Oil program, The Whistler, each Wednesday night at the same time. Brought to you by the Signal Oil Company, marketers of Signal gasoline and motor oil and fine quality automotive accessories. Signal has asked me to remind you, to get the most driving pleasure, drive at sensible speeds, be courteous, and obey traffic regulations. It may save a life, possibly your own. Featured in tonight's story were Betty Lou Gerson and Tony Barrett. The Whistler was produced by George W. Allen, with story by Joel Malone and Harold Swanton, and music by Wilbur Hatch, and was transmitted to our troops overseas by the Armed Forces Radio Service. Next Wednesday, for a full hour of mystery over most of these stations, tune in a half hour earlier. Enjoy The Saint as well as The Whistler. This is Marvin Miller speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum, a repository of crime, of death by violence. Here in the bleak stone structure which is Scotland Yard, there is a warehouse of souvenirs, where ordinary objects, a briar-root pipe, a dingy white glove, a lump of twisted sealing wax, all have a history of murder. This length of sash cord is quite commonplace. You might see something like this in any window frame.
Harmless-looking bit of rope. It seems so. Frayed at one end, cut all cleanly at the other.
Just the right length to hook around a man's neck and twist.
Today, that bit of sash cord can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum.
Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. Outside these walls of blackened brick and slate is London, where since daybreak the river has borne an endless burden of traffic. On fog-shrouded bridges and in narrow streets, tens of thousands of pedestrians have jostled one another, all very much alive. But here, within this room, the connoisseurs of crime may see recorded for posterity in cabinets, in wooden trays, in jars, carefully labeled and preserved, the evidence of vindictive death. This sash cord, a short piece of rope, grimy, frayed at one end, not remarkable in itself, yet it came from the stage of a famous theater in the city of Brighton, where Octavia Kenmore, actress-manager, was concluding her annual engagement. The alley of that theater was like any other, a corridor of darkness between the street and the stage door. And one September evening, a man came running out of the shadows, startling the doorkeeper who sat dozing in his chair.
Mr. Carter, what's the trouble, sir?
You'll find out soon enough. Operator? St. Carter here, Mercury Theatre. Send an ambulance quickly. There's been an accident. One of our stagehands, he's lying unconscious in the alley. Hurry, please. Yes.
One of the cast, Mr. Carter? Who is it? Tell me.
It's Buckland. I can't bring him round. I tried.
If Buckland? Oh, Miss Kenmore will be terribly distressed. Stage carpenter with her for 20 years.
I dare say she will.
Hadn't we better go and lift him in, sir? But perhaps there's something could be done.
No, it's better not to move him till the doctor comes. It may be serious. And we wouldn't want to injure him, you know.
A man found dead or dying. A phone call. Then the waiting. Over the crumpled figure stood old Tom Snellen, doorkeeper, and St. John Carter, leading man. Waiting. Waiting until an ambulance drew up and an intern came to kneel beside Jeff Buckland.
Which one of you called us?
I did.
You said the man was unconscious.
Well, he looked to me. I'm no physician.
This man's dead. Shot through the heart. You'd have done much better to have called the police.
The police arrived, and actors coming into the evening performance were questioned. The star of the play in the theater early, as was her custom, was left undisturbed. The constable at the door admitted a young plainclothesman.
Inspector Mitchell?
Yes, Jordan?
One of the men found this, sir. Hidden under some rubbish in the alley. .32 caliber.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Ellis.
Attention now focused on David Ellis, stage manager in Miss Kenmore's troupe.
Ever seen this pistol, Mr. Ellis?
Why, yes, it's the one we use in the play. I keep it in my desk. I've a useful license for it.
What sort of ammunition do you have?
For blank cartridges, of course. 32 blanks.
It's not loaded with blanks now. Bullets. And one chamber has been fired. I must warn you, Ellis. Anything you say henceforth will be written down and may be used as evidence.
What? You mean you're arresting Dave? But you can't. He never hurt anybody.
Who are you, young lady?
Miss Kenmore's secretary.
My wife, Inspector. Please, Lucy.
But this is... Oh, Inspector, you don't understand. Jeff was our friend. He's been, well, like a father to both of us. And while you stand here wasting time, the real murder is getting farther away.
That will do, Lucy. I take it there's been some trouble. Please, sir, state your business and then leave. I can't have my theater disrupted 15 minutes before curtain time.
Oh, Miss Kenmore.
Now, Lucy, control yourself. Will someone be good enough to tell me what has happened?
Certainly, Miss Kenmore. I had hoped it wouldn't be necessary to disturb you just at present. But one of your stagehands, Mr. Buckland, was found this evening outside...
Octavia Kenmore, distinguished actress-manager, darling of the provinces. Equally adept at comedy or tragedy.
Of course, I'm gravely shocked. Poor Mr. Buckland. A good and faithful servant, Inspector. Oh, but it is preposterous of you to suspect Mr. Ellis. My stage managers never kill people. In any case, I can't spare him. We ring up in 10 minutes exactly.
I'm extremely sorry, Miss Kenmore, but Ellis is a material witness. He must come to the station house for further questioning. It was his pistol.
It was my pistol. I own all the props used in my play.
The license is in his name. Legally, he is the owner.
Then I demand that you release him in my personal recognizance.
I'd like to do that, ma'am, but unfortunately your entire company is under surveillance and is only permitted to perform tonight. Ellis, you must come with me.
Very well. Go with them, David. Lucy and I will be down to see you. And the inspector, as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you, Miss Kenmore.
The police left the theater, except for certain constables on duty at the door. And in her dressing room, Octavia Kenmore made ready.
Lucy, my child. Ah, me. How weak a thing the heart of woman is. Come, don't be downcast.
Oh, how can I help it, Miss Kenmore? With David in prison.
Nonsense. He's only detained for questioning. He isn't charged with any crime. I'm thinking of Geoffrey Buckland, an excellent good man, and the best stage carpenter there was in England.
Was he married?
His family's in Manchester. I'll have to telephone them immediately after the performance.
What? You really mean you're going on?
Certainly I am. And you will do Davy's job tonight.
What? Me? Run the show?
Why not? You've seen Davy do it often enough. And work is what you need. There's no time to think. Now, quickly now. Check the stage for the first scene while I repair my makeup. Go, my child.
The play went smoothly. The curtain rose and fell as the actors took their calls. Lucy Ellis, listening to the applause, realized suddenly she was quite calm and self-possessed. But her composure was nothing to that of Octavia Kenmore. She descended on the police station not many minutes later.
Ah, Miss Kenmore and Mrs. Ellis. Come in, won't you?
I am in, Inspector. Now, I expect a full explanation of what you have accomplished by imprisoning my employee these past 2 hours.
Please sit down, ladies. There's plenty of time.
Is there? I expect to leave Brighton tomorrow night.
taking my stage manager with me.
Is he all right, Inspector?
He's not in chains or even in a dungeon, Mrs. Ellis. In fact, he's quite comfortable.
Oh, thank heavens for that.
If you will both be seated, madam.
Since you insist. Thank you, Inspector. Well, have you nothing to tell us about this case?
I'm waiting at the moment for our pathologist's report.
Court?
Yes, routine police procedure.
Well, the man's been shot. That was quite obvious.
The bullet is important, particularly in court, to establish the actual weapon.
It seemed to me the hand that fired the weapon is a more important consideration.
Eventually, Miss Kenmore, and inevitably, I trust, we'd like to know more about Buckland's background, his habits. Did he drink, for example?
Despite the general opinion, there are many in the theatrical profession who are not addicted to alcohol, Inspector. Mr. Buckland was a decent man.
Octavia Kenmore told the truth about the murdered man, a non-drinker, except for an occasional pint of bitter after the show, a devoted family man in an occupation where family relationships are often difficult to maintain. There was nothing to indicate a motive for murder.
In all the years with me, I have never known him to miss a single performance. He was a craftsman who could rig and handle any production, heavy or light. With him on the job, my stage managers had an easy time of it. Everyone liked him. His only fault, perhaps, was that he was too loyal to me.
We're not being much help to you, are we, Inspector?
Oh, yes. You've helped to fill in the picture. I've learned a lot.
No? What have you learned?
2 important things, Miss Kenmore. First, that Buckland was not a man who made enemies. All my reports bear this out. And also, that he was extremely devoted to you.
You think that's significant?
Extremely. You keep a close rein in your company. You should know of any jealousies or quarrels that occurred.
I'd know about them, yes.
I'm sure of that. You're not the person to tolerate friction or even bad habits in members of your troop. Come in.
Pathology report, Inspector. I knew you wanted right away.
Thank you. Yes. Well, this is interesting. Why wasn't I told of this before?
You know what they're like in the lab, Inspector. They wanted to be sure. Absolutely sure.
I see. Miss Kenmore, can you think of a reason why anyone should want to shoot a dead man?
Well, hardly. A useless procedure.
It seems so. So it happened. Apparently Buckland was dead of strangulation before he was shot.
Today, the instrument of that murder, a piece of sash cord, can be found in the Black Museum. It is a good question. Inspector Mitchell repeated it.
Can you think of a reason why anyone should want to shoot a dead man?
An interesting problem, is it not?
The medical report is very definite. Buckland was strangled with a thin piece of rope. Because he wore a scarf about his neck, the marks weren't noticed till they brought him to the lab. He was dead before the bullet ever was fired.
Inspector Mitchell then went back to the scene of the crime, the alley beside the theater where the body of Jeffrey Buckland had been found. And with him, at her own insistence, went Octavia Kenmore.
What are they looking for, Miss Kenmore?
The thin piece of rope, of course. They'll never find it. If the murderer had an ounce of brains, he'll have taken it with him.
Oh, it's strange. I don't suppose this alley ever had so much light turned onto it before.
It was strange. Men searching every cranny, their flashlights pointing and probing, picking out grillwork balconies, iron ladders and fire escapes thick with rust. The men themselves silhouetted against the light.
Oh, Miss Kenmore?
Yes?
We found this, caught up in that balustrade. I think it's the weapon. Our lab can tell us definitely, of course.
I see. A piece of lash line.
What's that? Lash line, did you say?
Yes, it's the sort of rope we use backstage to lash the scenery together.
Much the same as ordinary clothesline?
Oh, sash cord, yes.
Would you be able to identify it as belonging to your stage equipment?
Oh, that's hard to say.
Miss Kenmore, Inspector.
Yes, Lucy?
One of the stagehands reported to me tonight. They'd had trouble with one of the sets. The line was too short to make it fast.
Could you locate that piece of scenery, Mrs. Ellis?
I think so. I told him to leave it on top of the stack so that we could replace it in the morning.
Well, let's go on stage then, shall we? Do you know, Miss Kenmore, as a youth, I was strongly attracted to the theater.
Were you indeed, Inspector Mitchell?
They moved through the stage door onto the platform.
This is the flat, the one with the short lash line.
You see how it works, Inspector. The rope is flipped round the iron cleats and tied off at the bottom, so the audience sees only an unbroken wall.
I understand perfectly. The cord of this rope matches the piece found in the alley. Rust, stains, and all.
What does that suggest to you, Inspector?
There's little doubt in my mind, Miss Kenmore, that the person we want is a member of your own company.
Yes, I've decided that for myself some time
ago. A member of your company, I think, cut off this cordage to strangle Buckland. And someone else, familiar with these premises, took the pistol from Ellis's desk.
Then you don't think my husband's guilty?
I haven't said that. But I must check once more who actually was here, backstage, between the hours of 6 and 7.
I was here myself in my dressing room. And Sneller, the doorkeeper, was on duty. He surely...
We took his statement, of course. He seemed a bit evasive now that I think of it.
I won't hear a word against him. Sneller's perfectly honest. I take an oath on it.
Is he? A remarkably sound sleeper all the same?
What do you mean?
The extraordinary thing about his story, he claims to have been dozing in his chair. He didn't wake even when a pistol was fired not 30 feet away. I think perhaps I'd better go and visit him.
Then I'll come...
No, Miss Kenmore, not this trip. Investigations of this kind are sometimes dangerous.
The old man lived close by the theater. 4 flights of well-worn steps led to an attic door.
What do you want? What is it?
You're Mr. Snellen?
I am.
We're the police. My name is Mitchell, C.I.D. Should I show you my credentials?
No, I recognize you, sir. Come inside.
John Snellen had no need to be afraid, but it was his nature to be timid. Merely an old man who wanted to avoid trouble. Sometimes when arguments occurred, it was his habit to pretend to be asleep in his cubbyhole behind the stage door.
You expect me to believe that when a pistol was fired close by you, you didn't even hear it?
I can't rightly say this. There's heavy traffic in the street that time of night, you know. If I did hear a noise, I must have took it for a passing car.
Yes, I'll admit that's a likely explanation.
Perhaps I ought to...
Yes, what is it? If there's something you haven't told us, I advise you to come out with it.
What had he seen and heard? A trifle. But possibly a trifle of importance. Almost enough to send a man to the gallows.
I know I should have spoke of it before, sir, but, well, it was a little before 7 o'clock, and Mr. Buckland was inside near his toolbox, talking to this flashy-dressed young fella, and Mr. St. John Carter, he was there too, just standing by, so to speak.
Could you hear what they were saying?
No bookmaking in this house. That was what Buckland said. Miss Kenmore won't stand for it.
She's strict about such things.
Yes, sir. Everyone knows that. Miss Kenmore won't have gambling in her company. An actor would get himself discharged if she caught him betting the horses or some such thing.
What else did Buckland say?
Well, he warned the fellow he'd go straight to Miss Kenmore. He said how this man had been following the company all along the tour, and Carter and some of the others had been betting with him. But that was all. The 3 of them went out together, still talking.
And that was the last you saw of him alive?
Yes, sir, it was. And Mr. Carter, sir, it struck me at the time. He came back a little later. Went up to his dressing room, I guess, and then went right out again. But he seemed so cheerful and high-spirited. I thought the gentlemen must have settled their differences all right.
Carter didn't come back again till he found Buckland's body and called the ambulance.
That's right, sir.
It begins to make sense, Inspector.
Begins to, yes. But why the stage manager's gun? And why shoot a dead man? Why?
Why indeed? Why steal a gun to shoot a dead man? Hoping to find the answer to this question, the inspector went to Brighton jail to call on David Ellis.
Look here, Inspector, why are you holding me without a shred of evidence? Won't I be permitted to travel with the company when they leave tonight?
It all depends.
On what?
Your replies to a few questions.
Ask them by all means.
How much gambling goes on in the company?
Not a great deal. Some of the actors bet a few shillings now and then. Actually, their salaries are so small they can't afford to be reckless.
Does Miss Kenmore know about it?
Not a chance. If she did, we'd have replacements in a matter of minutes.
It would follow, then, that an actor who wanted to keep his job would be careful that such information never reached Miss Kenmore.
Well, I'd certainly say so.
Is there anyone in the company who needed that job badly?
What do you mean, badly enough to commit murder?
Yes.
I doubt it. Of course, you never know. In troops like this one, most of the supporting cast are either on the way up or down. A dismissal might mean the end of a career.
Ellis, has anyone a reason for wanting you out of the way?
No.
Why? Whatever for?
That gun was stolen from your desk, loaded with live ammunition, and after the murder it was left where we'd be sure to find it and hold you responsible.
Oh, I can't believe that anyone would do a thing like that. Unless... No, Inspector, there really isn't anyone.
Indeed? Well, there is, though. No matter how clumsily he may have gone about it, I can't help feeling that our murderer has tried to pin his crime on you. For the moment, I'm going to let him think he's succeeded.
How do you do that?
By keeping you locked safely up here in jail.
A short time later, Inspector Mitchell was admitted to Miss Kenmore's suite at the Shorefront Hotel.
Any progress to report, Inspector?
Not much, I'm afraid.
Have you been to see David?
I have. I left him in the best of health.
Well, why are you holding him? David didn't kill anyone. You know that as well as I do.
I'm afraid I don't know it. I've met many murderers in my time, Mrs. Ellis. Most of them look quite as innocent as your husband. Besides, I have a hunch he could be somewhat more cooperative.
In what way?
Tell me, is there anything you know of that your husband might be concealing? Or some, mistaken idea of gallantry? Something perhaps concerning you?
Why, no, I hardly think so.
I seem to remember a melodramatic little scene I accidentally walked in on.
Oh, but that was nothing. Just because St. John Carter made some advances to me, and David resented it.
Oh. That may be more important than you think, Mrs. Ellis. In fact, it may be the piece of information
Inspector Mitchell thought that he knew the killer at last. But it takes evidence to bring a man to court. Then Miss Kenmore made a helpful suggestion.
You said you were a devotee of the theatre, Inspector Mitchell.
I am indeed, ma'am.
Did you by any chance see me as Lady Teazle?
I did. A most marvelous performance.
Then you recall, of course, the third act. I have something of that...
A crucial moment in a famous play, when standing behind a screen, the lady overheard a villain's treachery exposed. Such a dramatic device as might be used effectively off stage as well as on. At the theater, before the matinee, the acting out began.
Oh, St. John, may I see you a minute?
Of course, Lucy, my dear. Not given up hope for Dave, I trust?
No, not at all.
That's the proper spirit. Still, I understand we're leaving Brighton without him.
Please, I'd rather not discuss it.
Perhaps in his absence you won't mind so much my paying you little attention. Like the old days, eh?
St. John, Miss Kenmore's waiting. She wants to see you at once.
Really? The great Miss Kenmore? That sounds ominous.
It is. She's breathing fire and brimstone.
Is she? And it so happens I come from a long line of fire-eaters. Lead the way, my girl.
Octavia Kenmore was seated at her makeup table. Behind her, the tiny dressing room was crowded with trunks and props and costumes. In an alcove, hardly noticed, there stood a screen.
Here he is, Miss Kenmore.
So I can see, yes.
Hello, what's the long face about? Nothing to do with me, I'm sure.
You've been placing bets on the races, Mr. Carter.
Oh?
Therefore, I'm compelled to dispense with your services. Here's your check and return fare to London. Your understudy will replace you at the matinee.
See here, you can't do this. I have a contract.
This check covers the terms of your contract.
Miss Kenmore, whoever told you this was lying?
A man in danger of his life seldom lies.
If Ellis made this accusation...
No, David. Your friend. Your flashily dressed friend who admits to bookmaking. And may shortly admit to murder.
Oh, so Morgan has squealed, has he?
If that's the word, yes. I gather he's ready to implicate you.
He'll try. That kind always does. He did the killing. He can't drag me into it.
I'm afraid you're already implicated quite seriously, Mr. Carter, and by your own words and actions.
Oh, well, Inspector Mitchell, isn't it? What sort of game is this?
The glorious game of play acting.
Congratulations, Miss Kenmore. A very successful little playlet.
You haven't got anything you can prove.
No use bluffing. You took the pistol, didn't you, from Ellis's desk and shot Buckland with it.
I didn't kill him. He was dead before.
You are under arrest, Mr. Carter, and charged with willful murder.
It wasn't me, I tell you. Morgan choked him with that bit of rope when Buckland threatened him with the police. Morgan had no license and a previous record, too. It would have been jail for him. He did it, and after that...
Yes, you thought quickly. You tried to take advantage of the situation to frame Ellis so that the field would be clear with his wife.
No!
No, Carter, you may not have killed anyone, but you are an accessory after the fact, and you did put a bullet through a man's heart. A delicate question for the jury to decide, but I predict you'll pay the penalty. Come along now, and come quietly.
Today, that piece of sash cord, properly marked and ticketed, lies in a glass case in the Black Museum. People of the theater can be, and most often are, fiercely loyal to one another. Octavia Kenmore was such a person, an actress-manager who accepted responsibility not only for her company's professional welfare, but for their personal happiness as well. St. John Carter was an exception to the rule. But then his career had an exceptional ending, taking his final bow as he did on a platform 13 steps high at 8 o'clock one winter evening. Well, the murder weapon is on exhibit for all to admire in the famous room at Scotland Yard. And now, until we meet here again for another story from the Black Museum, I remain, as always, obediently yours.
Presents The Mysterious Traveler.
This is The Mysterious Traveler, inviting you to join me on another journey into the realm of the strange and the terrifying. I hope you will enjoy the trip, that it will thrill you a little and chill you a little. So settle back, get a good grip on your nerves, and be comfortable, if you can, as you hear the story I call Murder in Jazz Time. Tonight, we're going to delve into the strange and confusing events in the life of Alexander Drake. But what person can tell you of these events better than Alex Drake himself? As our story begins, Drake is seated at a small table, staring at several blank sheets of writing paper. Slowly he picks up a pen, hesitates, and starts to write.
I scarcely know at what point to begin telling of the things that have happened to me these past months. I suppose I should begin with Vicky. Vicky, who I have loved ever since we were children. If my love was never returned by her, I was content to wait, ever hopeful that someday she would reciprocate my feelings. We saw a great deal of each other after she graduated college, and I watched with interest as she embarked upon a singing career. Success came to Vicky quickly and smoothly, as all things did. She sang with several name bands and then became a star attraction at the swankier nightclubs. Several years passed, and then one night, as I had always dreamed of it happening, Vicky agreed to marry me. That was the happiest moment of my life. A week later, we were married and driving to New Orleans on our honeymoon. Happy, darling?
Oh, yes, Alex, yes.
No regrets about giving up your career?
None at all.
Oh, it's good of you to say that, Vicky. I'll try to make it up to you.
Oh, no, really, Alex. Giving up my career has meant sacrifice for a long time now. I've known that I wasn't very good.
Not very good? Why, you were getting $1,000 a week at the Casablanca. And look at the way your recordings are selling.
Oh, let's face it, Alex, I have a nice voice. I'm fairly attractive. And thanks to fine publicity, I've come a long way. But I'm not really a very good singer.
Oh, nonsense. I think you're a wonderful singer.
That's because you're in love with me, darling. But I know better.
Is that why you decided to give up your career? Marry me?
Yes, darling.
I'm glad you told me. Oh, look, Vicky, that sign. Only 37 miles to New Orleans.
Oh, wonderful. At last, I'm going to see New Orleans. You don't know how long I've waited for this.
Why all this enthusiasm for New Orleans?
Why, Alex, New Orleans is the birthplace of jazz. And just think, Jeff Becker is still in New Orleans, and we can hear him play.
He's the fellow that owns the famous Waterfront Cafe, isn't he?
Oh, Alex, Jeff Becker isn't famous because he owns a cafe. Why, he's one of the great names of jazz. Many critics think he's the finest jazz pianist who ever lived.
Forgive my ignorance, darling, I'm afraid I'm just a long-haired heart. Tell me, if this fellow Jeff Becker is as great as you say, how come I haven't heard more about him?
Because he's always refused to leave New Orleans. He's had some fabulous offers to play in New York, but he's turned them all down. That's why he isn't widely known. But real lovers of jazz come from all over the country to hear Jeff Becker play at his cafe.
Well, then I guess there isn't any question as to where we're going tonight. Jeff Becker's it is. An hour later, we were in New Orleans and registered at a hotel. Early that evening, Vicky and I had supper at Antoine's, and then we left for Jeff Becker's cafe. As we drove, Vicky was unable to hide the excitement she felt. Jeff Becker's cafe turned out to be a long, rambling, shabby building with a balcony that ran the length of it and hung over the river. The inside of the cafe was as unpretentious as the outside. As we were seated, a few musicians began to drift in and take their places in the bandstand. Vicky whispered excitedly to me the names of the musicians, whom she seemed to know without ever having seen before. And suddenly Vicky clutched at my arm.
Alex, look. There's Jeff Becker.
Where?
There he is, walking towards the piano.
That little sandy-haired man?
Yes. That's Jeff Becker.
I stared at him and felt somewhat disappointed. For no good reason whatsoever, my imagination had led me to see Jeff Becker as an impressive-looking individual, whereas in reality he was a slight man, being no more than 5'5", with a plain, undistinguished-looking face. He looked a good deal younger than the 50 he was reputed to be. There were two very attractive-looking women with him, both of whom followed his every move as he sat down at his piano. The talk and the laughter in the cafe died out, and Jeff Becker and his men began to play. As Jeff Becker played, the disappointment I'd felt about him passed with me. As he sat there at the piano playing smoothly, effortlessly, he was no longer a small, slight man with a plain face. There was a warmth and greatness about him, and even I, who was no lover of jazz, could sense the genius of Jeff Becker.
Oh, Alex, isn't he wonderful?
Yes, Vicky, he is. He really is.
Alex, look. He's coming this way.
Yes, he seems to be coming to our table.
Good evening, Miss Saunders. Welcome to New Orleans.
Why, thank you, Mr. Becker. Thank you very much.
Just call me Jeff. Only tourists call me Mr. Becker.
All right, Jeff. Oh, this is my husband, Alex Drake.
Glad to meet you.
How do you do? Won't you join us?
Sorry, no. I only have a minute. The boys and me got some playing to do.
I've heard Brown B. Boogie played before, but never as wonderfully as you do it.
Thanks very much, Vicky.
How did you know who I was?
I've seen pictures of you.
Have you ever heard my wife sing, Jeff?
Yes, I have. Well, I got to be getting back to work. It's been nice meeting you folks. See you around.
Yes, of course. Huh. An abrupt sort of fellow, isn't he?
He was being tactful, darling, not abrupt. He was afraid you might ask him what he thought of my singing.
Well, what's wrong with my asking him that?
Oh, nothing. Only it would have made Jeff Becker unhappy to have told you the truth about my singing.
Well, anyway, I still think you're great.
Thank you, darling. Oh, look. They're going to play now.
We sat listening to the magic of Jeff Becker's music for hours. When I suggested to Vicky that we leave, she refused, insisting that we remain until closing time, which was 4 in the morning. The next evening found us once again at Jeff's cafe, and again we remained until closing. Try as I might, I couldn't get Vicky interested in the sights of New Orleans and the fascinating swamp country nearby. Night after night, despite my protests, we would end up at Jeff's cafe. Life to Vicky came to revolve around these nightly visits, and all else seemed unreal to her. Soon, even I lost track of time. Weeks passed, And then one night at closing time, Jeff Becker came over to our table. For the first time since the night we'd met.
Howdy, folks. Glad to see you still with us.
Hello, Jeff.
Well, how do you folks like New Orleans? Having a good time?
Frankly, we've seen very little of New Orleans outside of this cafe.
Well, just between us. There ain't very much more to see.
I agree. Oh, dear, it's closing time already. No sooner do we get here than it's time to go home.
Well, if you'd like to hear more music, why not stay on? The boys and me always have a small session after closing hours.
Well, thanks very much, Jeff, but I'm afraid that we really must...
we'd love to stay on, Jeff. It's wonderful of you to ask us.
Glad to have you. See you around.
Vicky, enough is enough. We've been here since 9 o'clock.
Alex, you don't understand. It's an honor to have Jeff ask you to stay on. Few people get that invitation.
Well, I'm duly appreciative, believe me, but 7 hours is enough of this place for one night. Now, come along, Vicky. Let's go back to the hotel.
No, I want to stay for this session.
Vicky, I think I've been more than reasonable. Coming here night after night for weeks. Now it's about time I got my way. I insist we leave.
I won't go, I tell you. I'm staying here. If you want to go back to the hotel, don't let me keep you.
As Vicky screamed at me, for a brief flashing moment, I almost imagined I'd seen hate in her eyes. The shock of that moment was like a revelation. Suddenly, I realized that Vicky had changed, that I was losing her. Her face, as she listened to the music, was like the faces of the musicians, and Jeff Becker's himself. Their emotion laid bare. I turned ecstatic, impassioned, unresisting. I was an outsider looking in on a way of life of which I could never be part. The lateness of the hour, the smoke-filled room, and my confused thoughts were too much for me. And I fell asleep with my head on the table. I have no idea how long I slept. But when I awoke, it was daylight. I became aware of a woman singing. I looked up. I saw it was Vicky. Vicky standing by the piano, singing to Jeff Becker.
It is a dancing floor just for
Well, Jeff?
I don't know, Vicky.
What's wrong?
Hard to say.
Oh.
Vicky, jazz was born in these parts. And it came from the people. The people who worked on the levees, the riverside wills, and in the fields. It was part of the bone and flesh of old-timers like Willie Johnson and Joe Fletcher. They played jazz the way it was in their hearts. A singer like Chippy Hill just stepped up, clapped her hands, and gave out with the blues. That's what made it great. They played and sang as they felt.
I see.
Second-rate musicians picked up something that was fine and clean and took it to the big cities in the north. But they weren't playing for the sake of music. They were playing for greenbacks.
And is that what's wrong with my singing?
Afraid so. I reckon you had too many teachers, Vicky, and they all taught you to sing by the book. It may be popular, but it ain't good.
Do you think it's too late to go back?
It's hard to say, Vicky. Do you want to start all over?
Oh, yes, Jeff, yes. Would you let me stay on here and sing with your band?
Well, if you feel...
No, Vicky.
Alex!
You're not singing with the band. We're leaving New Orleans at once.
Alex, be reasonable. You know...
No use, Vicky. We're leaving New Orleans today, and that's final. I'll get your suitcases from the closet, Vicky, so that you can start packing.
I tell you, Alex, I'm not leaving New Orleans. Not only am I staying, but I'm going to sing with Jeff Becker's band.
Vicky, are you blind? Can't you see what's happening? You're losing all sense of perception, of values. Life to you has come to mean only Jeff Becker's cafe.
I don't care. That's where I belong, where I really feel alive. If you love jazz, felt about it the way I do, you'd understand.
I do understand, but there are other things besides Jeff Becker and his music.
Not for me, there aren't.
It was at that moment I knew that I had lost Vicky. As she turned away from me, An overwhelming hatred for Jeff Becker surged up within me. Had he been in the room at that moment, I would have killed him without any hesitation. I left the hotel, walked the streets of New Orleans. I knew that Vicky would never be mine as long as Jeff Becker were alive. And I also knew that I couldn't go on without Vicky. There was only one answer. I returned to the hotel, told Vicky I would remain in New Orleans with her. Night after night, we continued going to that Waterfront cafe. And each night after the place had closed, Vicky would sing with the band. As I listened to Vicky sing, even I, who knew very little of music, could sense that her singing was superb. The musicians in the band looked at her approvingly and accepted her as one of themselves. Under Jeff Becker's almost hypnotic guidance, she sang with warmth, feeling. As much as I hated Jeff Becker, I couldn't help but admire his genius for bringing out talent. The music ended, and Jeff rose from the piano and patted Vicky on the shoulder encouragingly. He left the bandstand and started walking through the cafe towards his office in the back. This was the moment I had long waited for. I quickly eased out of my chair, which was in a darkened part of the cafe, and slipped out into the balcony. I then ran quietly along the balcony until I reached the French door that opened into Jeff Becker's office. I got there just as Jeff sat down at his desk. He was alone. I opened the door and stepped into his office.
Oh. Hello, Alex. What can I do for you?
I've come for my wife.
Your wife? But Vicky isn't in here.
Vicky is wherever you are. And I can't have that, Jeff. She's got to be mine.
She is yours. You know that.
No. She belongs to you now. She said as much. As long as you're alive, Vicky will never be mine. I know that.
You're wrong, Alex. Believe me. It's music.
She's got to be mine. She's got to be. Alex, don't. I felt Jeff's body go limp in my hands. And I knew he was dead. I quickly picked up his slight body in my arms and carried it out to the balcony. There was no one in sight. I leaned over the balcony rail and dropped Jeff's body. It fell into the river with a small splash and was gone. I quietly walked to the other end of the balcony and slipped into my seat in the darkened cafe. The musicians and Vicky were still on the bandstand talking, and I knew they hadn't missed me during the few minutes I'd been gone. The ordeal was over. A week passed, and Jeff Becker's disappearance was the talk of New Orleans. The police questioned everyone, but were unable to solve the mystery. Vicky was inconsolable and locked herself in her room at the hotel, refusing to see anyone.
Who is it?
It's Alex, darling. Please let me in. Darling, you can't stay in your room like this day after day. You know it isn't good for you. Vicky, let's leave New Orleans. Go to New York.
No, I'm going to wait until Jeff comes back.
Vicky, Jeff isn't coming back.
What? What do you mean?
A body was found floating in the Gulf this morning. The police think it's Jeff's body.
Oh, no!
After a week in the water, naturally, it was hard to identify.
Jeff!
Dead? Yes, darling. It's in all the papers.
Oh, Alex!
You mustn't cry, darling. Here, let me wipe your tears. Don't you think it would be better if we left New Orleans?
All right, Alex. Anything you say.
A few days later, we were back in New York. There was snow on the ground, and the air was invigorating. What had happened in New Orleans seemed like a dream, a bad dream. At first, Vicky was melancholy, but as days passed, she grew better, and I felt confident that in time she'd be her old self. We saw all the shows in town and dined at the finest restaurants. And then one night I took her to Carnegie Hall to hear the Philharmonic Orchestra. Here, darling, here's the program.
Thank you.
Oh, I see they're going to play the Rachmaninoff First Piano Concerto with Andre Duval as soloist. You've always liked that concerto, haven't you?
Yes, Alex.
Look, Duval's just come up on stage. Young, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Happy?
Alex, they're going to play now.
As I sat there in that great concert hall listening to the orchestra, I became aware of discordant playing. I looked at Vicky, at other concert goers, but none seemed aware of it. The discordancy grew. And then suddenly I realized it wasn't the music of Rachmaninoff I was hearing. It was the music of Jeff Becker, being played faster and faster, louder and louder. I walked to the front of the screen out. As I put my hands to my ears, I became aware of my arm being shaken. It was Vicky.
Alex, what's the matter with you?
Vicky, the music. Listen to it.
Alex, be quiet. Everyone is looking at us.
I can't stand it anymore. Let's get out of here.
All right, Alex, but please be quiet. Everybody's looking at us.
Hurry, Vicky, hurry. Oh, it's gone. Thank goodness I can't hear it anymore.
What's gone?
The music.
Alex, you aren't making any sense. We came to the concert to hear music. You look so pale.
No, I'm all right now.
Are you sure?
Yes. Let's go home now, Vicky, huh? All the way home, I kept thinking of the amazing hallucination I'd had. Obviously, it was the result of the mental strain I had undergone in New Orleans. But with sufficient rest and relaxation, I would soon forget the horrible events that had occurred there. Arriving home, I went to bed, but found it difficult to fall asleep. Hours later, I drifted off into an uneasy sleep, and then I started dreaming. I dreamt that I was in Jeff Becker's cafe, and the only people there were Jeff and myself. He was seated at the piano playing, smiling at me. I walked over to the bandstand, and he spoke to me.
Hello, Alex. How do you like this number? Pretty good for a dead man, huh?
You can't play if you're dead?
Yes, I can, Alex. You hear my music, don't you?
Yes, I do.
You're always going to hear it, Alex. Always. My music will never die. Even if you did kill me, it'll go on and on.
No! Stop! No! I don't want to hear it! Stop! Stop!
Alex, wake up! Wake up! Alex, what is it?
What is it?
You were having a nightmare. You screamed and woke me up.
Yes. I remember now.
What were you dreaming about?
New Orleans.
New Orleans?
Yes. Go back to sleep now, Vicky. I'm all right. I'm all right, I said to her. But I wasn't. That was the beginning of a series of nightmares and hallucinations in which I heard Jeff Becker playing that accursed music of his. When an attack came, I would flee from room to room, pressing my fingers against my ears, but there was no escape. I could hear the rhythmic pounding of Jeff Becker's music in my head, growing louder and louder, relentlessly hammering away. I knew that it would only be a question of time before he drove me mad. I fought for my sanity, but
Good morning, Mr. Drake. How are you feeling today? Oh, I see you've done quite a bit of writing. Good. I'm glad you followed my suggestion.
It's all written down, Doctor. Everything that happened to me.
Fine, Mr. Drake. I'm sure it'll be of great help to both of us. Do you feel in the mood for a visitor?
A visitor?
Yes, your wife.
Yes, I'd like to see Vicky.
She's just outside. I'll have her come in. Will you come in now, Mr. Drake?
Hello, Alex. How are you, darling?
Vicky. Oh, it's good to see you again and have you near me.
Oh, Alex. Dr. Mitchell says that you're much better.
Yes. I'm much better.
Doctor, will you tell him?
Yes, Mr. Drake.
Tell me what?
Oh, won't you sit down, Mr. Drake? Yeah, that's it. Now, what I'm going to tell you will come as a shock, but I'm hopeful it'll rid you of the hallucinations you suffer from.
Yes, Doctor?
Mr. Drake, you did not murder Jeff Becker.
But I did. I choked him until he was dead. And then I threw him into the river.
No, Mr. Drake. Jeff Becker was not dead when you threw him into the river. He was only unconscious, and the water revived him. Jeff Becker is alive. He was picked up by a fishing trawler going to sea. Will you come in, please?
I didn't want to do it, but he made me.
Hello, Alex. How are you?
No! You're dead! You're dead, do you hear? But your music, it goes on and on. I can't get away from your music. It follows me everywhere.
I'm afraid we failed again. The feeling of guilt is overwhelming. However, we shan't give up.
It's getting louder and louder, and I can't escape from it. Stop it! Stop it!
Traveler again. Too bad about poor Alex, wasn't it? It just goes to prove you may be able to escape the law, but there's always your conscience to reckon with. But what happened to Alex? Oh, he finally responded to medical treatment, and today he and Vicky are a very happy couple. However, there are still two things Alex can't stand: jazz and the sight of rivers. Now, I recall another young man once who decided that two murders are better than one. And so... Oh, you have to get off here. I'm sorry. But I'm sure we'll meet again. I take this same train every week at the same time.
Starring the distinguished Hollywood actor Warren Williams, and featuring Carlton Young and Howard Culver with an all-star Hollywood cast. Original music by Del Castillo. Dead men's wills are often strange. We cannot attempt to understand them or try to find the answers. We can but tell the story.
This is Warren Williams bringing you the story, So Deep the Stream. But first, here's a brief message from your announcer.
And now back to Warren Williams as John Francis O'Connell in So Deep the Stream.
Many people leave strange legacies. One man in Oregon left a trunk full of government bonds to his wife. Another strange character in Chicago left a safety deposit box full of cash, $3 million in gold notes. My client and good friend, Frank Warner, left a most unusual legacy to his son, Evan. But it wasn't gold, negotiable stocks, or bonds. He left him a challenge. It was a sweltering summer night when I stopped off to see Frank on my way home. He lived on the lower east side of the city. Let's see. 3A, 3B. Oh, here it is, 3C. Frank Warner.
Come in.
By the beard of Shakespeare, if it isn't my good friend John O'Connell. Come in, you misguided thespian.
Well, here I am, Frank. But you certainly picked a scorcher for our get-together.
Now, isn't that just like a lawyer? Always worrying about the temperature or some other irrelevant, inconsequential, and immaterial matter.
Well, maybe you're right. After all, what's a temperature of 101 between friends?
Ah, that's the way I like to hear you talk. Especially when there's work to be done.
Work? On a night like this? Oh, no, Frank. Let's just sit here and talk and maybe reminisce a bit.
Later, my fine feathered friend. First, I have news for you. Bad news.
Another one of your plays turned down, Frank?
That, sir, would be only a temporary setback. What I have to tell you now will be permanent. John, I was over to the clinic on 68th Street this afternoon. I'm going to die.
Die? Oh, come now. Don't joke about a thing like that.
I'm not joking, John. It's the solemn truth. That's why I asked you to stop on your way home. John, my batting average on Broadway hasn't been very good, as you well know.
I've told you many times, Frank, that you've lived 50 years too soon. Your plays are too daring, your philosophy too advanced.
You see that trunk over there in the corner, John?
You've told me before that it's the morgue for your manuscript.
That's right. Inside are over 60 potential Broadway hits. Not for today, maybe, but ready for the world of tomorrow. Someday, John, this tired old world will have to realize that all men are brothers.
I'm afraid that won't happen overnight, Frank.
Maybe yes, maybe no. Things are moving swiftly in this old world of ours, John. But let's get down to the practical side. I have one son, as you know, Evan. He's the only one I have left in the world.
And one of the nicest young men I know, too.
He's a fine lad, that's true. And for better or for worse, I've steeped his mind with my philosophy. He's going to carry on as a playwright, going to produce my shows.
He graduates this year from college, doesn't he?
And with the highest honors. But outside of his education, I haven't much to leave him. Except...
Except what, Frank?
Except that trunk full of manuscripts and the fanatical belief that one day those plays will help make this world a better place in which to live.
Oh. What does he think of your plays?
He believes in them. So much so that he has sworn to me that he will devote his life to seeing that they are produced. The contents of that trunk, John, have become our religion. So be it. I want you to draw up my will, leaving my trunk and its contents to Evan. Today, it's without value. Tomorrow? Well, who knows, John? Who knows?
Frank Warner died 2 years later, while Evan was studying in Paris. His funeral carried little notice in the press, but the church was filled to capacity with old and new friends who had known him. Overalled workmen carrying lunchboxes sat next to and rubbed elbows with gentlemen in silk top hats. As I sat there and looked at the people, I wondered if Frank's philosophy of universal brotherhood hadn't borne fruit. Somehow the thought occurred to me that within the confines of this solemn old church, men and women, high-born and low-born, were gathering to do humble homage at the bier of a brilliant mind. Was this the beginning of reason and understanding? I wondered. Hello?
John, is that you, John?
Yes?
This is Evan Warner.
Why, Evan, good heavens. I'm glad to hear your voice again. How long have you been home?
Just flew in this morning. It's sure swell to be back.
And it's nice to have you here, too, Evan. When can you come over to see me? We've got quite a few things to talk over.
I'll come over tomorrow night. I'll even go one better. How about dinner?
That would suit me fine. What time?
We'll make it, how about 8?
Okay, dinner at 8 tomorrow night at the Waldorf. It's a deal.
And say, John.
Yes, Evan?
Keep your fingers crossed for me tonight, will you?
Fingers crossed? What do you mean?
I've got a date with Polly. You remember Polly McGuire, my old friend?
You bet I remember Polly. I think she's wonderful. What's up?
I'm going to take her over to our old rendezvous, that little cafe over on 54th Street. Where everything looks like it used to, and she still has that same old feeling. I'm going to pop the question. So, there you are, Polly. That's my story and my future. How about it, honey?
I don't know what to say, Evan, really. I've waited for you this long, and I guess a little while longer won't hurt anyone. But, Evan, do you really have to try producing your father's plays? He never got very far with them.
Only because the type wasn't right, darling, but now things are different. People are different.
Not the people I've seen.
What do you mean, Polly?
Well, I certainly don't see the brotherly love you want me to believe in sweeping the world.
Well, that's because you've just been shut up here in a big city. But believe me, Polly, where I've been, I see the difference. I've seen liberation in action, and it was something I'll never forget.
Maybe you're right, Evan. Perhaps I'm wrong. Anyway, I'll wait until you get this big Broadway smash you're talking about underway. And then?
And then, Polly, the day after the opening, you and I'll be married. Is it a deal?
Cross my heart. It's a deal.
Youth and ambition were not to be denied. Evan Warner had accomplished the impossible, up to a point. By sheer determination, he'd gone out and raised the money to produce the first of his father's plays. It was called Tomorrow's Children. The night before the opening, Evan, Polly, and I had a private little celebration. And here's a toast to the best producer on Broadway.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
Seriously, Evan, I hope you have the biggest smash hit this town has ever seen. I say that as a friend. But don't be downhearted if it's a flop. It's a propaganda play.
Well, I think the world is waiting for a moral and spiritual lift.
And all I can say is that you're ready to give it to them, aren't you, Evan?
Dad and I are, Polly. As you know, this show, Tomorrow's Children, depicts what life will be in a world as free as democracy can make it.
I wonder if those millions of people you're worrying about would appreciate our way of life.
Oh, just listen, Polly. Listen to the sage of the probate court saying that humanity is still the same old guy that wants to be led around by the nose.
Well, I won't take sides in this argument. Let's all wait until tomorrow night. Then we'll know. Won't we, Evan?
Yes. When the curtain comes down tomorrow night, we'll know. So be it.
Well, the critics all agree that it would have been better if Tomorrow's Children had never been born. The next morning we got together and wept over the press notices. Evan was deeply hurt.
Perhaps I'm crazy, but I'm going on. And, Polly, I can't ask you to keep your promise to marry me. I'd hoped for success, and instead I get black, dismal failure. But I can't compromise with truth. Polly, I want you to forget me. Marry someone with a future, with a good job, someone who can get you the things you deserve. And thanks, both of you, for sticking with me. Goodbye.
Well, what are you going to do with a fellow like Evan? Polly waited for another 6 months, and then, bright and early one morning, she called me to say she was married to Cyrus MacDonald, a wealthy mine owner from South Africa. Tired of waiting for Evan, she had chosen this way out. They left by plane that very night for their new home on the dark continent. I never knew how much Evan missed Polly until one day, months later, I dropped in to the little cafe where they used to spend their evenings. During my luncheon, Emil, the head waiter, came over to my table.
You know, Mr. O'Connell, it's a sad thing about Evan and Polly.
Yes. She got married a few months back. You heard about it, didn't you?
Yeah, I know all about it. It's too bad, too. You know, those young people never missed a Saturday night down here when they were going together?
Yes, I know. I came with them a few times.
They always had the same table right over there in the corner. They used to hold hands and dream big dreams. Now everything is free.
Hey, Mill, does Evan ever come here anymore?
That's the sad part about it. He still comes every Saturday night, just the same as usual.
Is he a new girl?
No, not at all. He still reserves the same little table, has it set for two, orders 2 roses, and then he just sits there like a mummy.
Orders a table for 2 and then comes here all alone, Emil?
Exactly. He sits down, listens to the piano. You can see what he's thinking of. But he won't give in. If he would only cry a little, get a little bit sentimental, maybe he would forget.
I don't think he's the forgetting kind, Emil.
Maybe not. Only, Mr. O'Connell, it makes me sick here at my stomach to see him suffer so. It makes me mad at the whole world, the world he is trying to save.
Well, Emil, that's the way of life. Some of us were born to be happy, and some of us were born to suffer. I want to help Evan very much, but he swears he won't see me until he produces a hit. What are you going to do with a fella like that?
I don't know. But I'll tell you what I did, Mr. O'Connell. I've collected $2,465 from waiters all over town toward his next play. He's almost got enough now.
How much more does he need, Emil?
$3,000. And this time, Mr. O'Connell, it's going to be different.
Different? How?
He must have 10,000 investors in his new show. Everyone from paper boys to beauty shop operators. They've all kicked in all their pennies, and
Well, being investors, they will all show up at the theater.
I see. With all those investors waiting to see their own show, they ought to have a sellout for weeks to come.
Yeah, that's right, Mr. O'Connell, that's right.
Well, in that case, Emil, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll send you a check for $3,000. I want to be an angel and go to heaven. But promise me that you'll never let him know it came from me.
All right. It's a deal, Mr. O'Connell. It's a deal. Part 2 of So Deep the Stream in just a moment. But first, a brief message from your announcer. And now back to So Deep the Stream with Warren William as John Francis O'Connell.
I wish you could have attended the opening night of Evan's new show, So Deep the Stream. Even the aisles were jammed with a shouting mass of humanity who wanted to tell the world just what they thought of Evan Warner. And when the final curtain went down...
Thank you. I made one big mistake in my life. I tried to produce a show for the people and by the people with money not of the people. It didn't work. This time, things are different. So Deep the Stream is your show. Yes, the story of your life. You the bootblacks, you the waiters and the steam fitters, you the hairdressers and the seamstresses, you are the stream. I promise you that one day we'll have a people's theater where your own shows will be produced and financed by all of us. Yes, all of us with our pennies and nickels, so that our message will be heard round the world. Our world. Our one world.
Evan Warner became the country's overnight sensation. Critics, sensing the popular movement, jumped on his bandwagon. Here was the great humanitarian, the new Lincoln. But others made over him, too. Others in the form and shape of lovely Pamela Hazelton. She lost no time in becoming friendly.
Oh, Evan, darling, what you haven't done to us. But you know, I went downtown and applied for a job as a social worker this morning. I want to work right in the midst of the poor and underprivileged.
But, Pamela, I don't want you to go that far. After all, the work is hard, tiring.
What would you have me do, Evan? Just sit here in this penthouse apartment and wait for you to call me?
Well, I could think of worse things.
Selfish genius. That's what you are, too. Now that you've converted me to your way of thinking, you want me to be a drone bee.
But you're too beautiful, my darling, to go into the slums.
All right, my dear one. Pamela's ready to compromise. I'll stay away from social service work. If you'll take me to dinner at the Versailles tonight, and then we'll do the nightclubs. Now then, how's that?
How could I resist, Pamela, dear?
And one more thing.
Yes, sweet?
I've scheduled you for the guest of honor at our next club meeting. All of my friends want to meet the young man who conquered Broadway single-handed. Why, they consider you a new Daniel.
A new Daniel? And a den full of lions, too. Social lions who think in terms of Rolls Royces and diamonds.
It's such a bad world, my darling. It offers many things your old world simply hasn't got. And more, it offers connections. And I do so want you to do a new show. One of your own. Something more for the intelligentsia this time.
Well, it's a thought. Maybe it's time I had a little nest egg, too. Everyone else seems to be getting them. Okay, we'll do it, Pamela. Of course we'll do it.
Not long after, the engagement of Pamela and Evan was announced. Evan had deserted his ideal. He moved over to the swanky side of town. His name was mentioned almost daily in the society column, but it was mentioned elsewhere, too. For example, in the little cafe on East 54th Street. Emil minced no words.
Can you beat it? Can you beat it, Mr. O'Connor? Here his friends all over town had faith in him and his ideals. We came to his rescue when he didn't have a friend or a red cent for that matter. And what happened? Success went to his head. So what does he do?
Yes, I know, Emil. But what he did has been done before and will be done again.
That's what we can't figure out. Who is this Pamela girl? What has she got that she couldn't find in, well, say, Polly, for instance?
Oh, yes, Polly. Hey, there was a fine girl. I wonder whatever happened to her. It's been months.
Why, I heard from her less than a month ago. She's coming back here, didn't you know?
No, she's never written to me.
Her husband was killed in an airplane wreck almost 3 months ago. She'll be here next month.
Next month, eh? Maybe she'll be here in time for the opening of Evan's new show.
His new show. That is very funny. The carriage trade better come out in droves. Because we won't be there. You can be sure of that.
As soon as Polly arrived, she came over to see me, pale and wan from the ordeal she'd been through. I thought I detected a gleam in her eye, the gleam of a crusader.
I had to go out of the country, John, to see that Evan was right. What I saw in Africa, well, I hate to go into it. This tired old world does need another Lincoln, and I'm not fooling.
Perhaps you're right, Polly. But what do you intend to do about it? I've told you what happened to Evan. He's to be married next month, you know. And he's sort of given up his crusade for humanity.
John, listen. Evan wasn't the originator of this idea, was he?
No, it goes back to his father, the original author.
Yes, and if I remember correctly, his father had a whole trunk full of manuscripts. Where are they now?
Still in the trunk, I guess. Evan hasn't much more use for
Well,
them.
that's what I'm driving at. I read many of those shows. One in particular was called Song of the Torch.
Song of the Torch. I remember that one, too. It carried a powerful message. Satirical, but I thought it excellent.
John, I want you to buy the rights to that show. Don't tell him who intends to finance it or who will produce it, but just get it at any price.
I know that you're well able to finance it, Polly, but whom do you have in mind to produce it?
I'll tell you, John. The same people that made So Deep the Stream the great hit that it was. The waiters, the bootblacks, the small fry. Yes, the people, John.
Let's say, Polly, I think you've got something. Let the people do it. You're right. It's about them. Why not let them produce it? Good. I'll get busy right away, and maybe... Well...
Maybe what, John?
Maybe it will bring Evan back to his senses.
Gee, I never thought lawyers could be so intuitive. Or maybe you're right. And here's hoping.
I wondered how Evan felt about a month later when he read in the papers that the People's Theater Group was opening with the Song of the Torch. I wondered, too, how he felt when his new show, Gay Blade, financed adequately by his wealthy friends, closed after a week's run. His conscience must have bothered him because one afternoon he came to see me at my office.
It's just one of those things, John. The story was weak, the direction even worse. I tried to hire Robert Light, but he was tied up in Hollywood.
Yes, it's too bad, Evan. Tell me, how's tricks? You've certainly shied away from your old friends these past few months.
Yeah, I know. But don't rub it in, John. You know how it is. Poor boy makes good. Wine, caviar.
And Pamela?
Oh, there's nothing wrong with Pamela, John. She's really fine. Only
you're just beginning to learn that you were a fish out of water, eh, Evan?
I guess that's it. John, I've wanted to go back to the old crowd for months. My own people. Guys who learn life the hard way, but it's hard to say, but I'm ashamed of myself. They think I'm a heel, and I guess they're right, John.
Well, maybe it's not too late to make amends, Evan.
Oh, what can I do to square myself? They won't forget or forgive.
No, I wouldn't say that. You know, of course, that one of your father's plays is opening this week. Day after tomorrow, in fact.
Yes, I read all about it. I wanted to drop into rehearsals, but, well, you know, they'd run me out of the theater.
Tell you what I'll do, Evan. I'll reserve seats for the opening night. And you come with me.
Come with you, boy? Oh, will I? And, thanks, Mr. Counselor. Thanks.
The Song of the Torch played to an overflowing and enthusiastic audience. The program carried the name of no director, but that didn't stop the show from being a smash hit. From our seat in the third row, we saw and sensed the beginning of something that transcended art and the stage. We saw public opinion being welded by sheer force of dramatic intensity. As the curtain lowered, the people stormed their approval.
Polly. Who's he, John?
Polly? Oh, I don't know. Must be the director or producer. Listen to him cheer.
It's Polly, John. It's our Polly. Stand up and cheer. It's Polly. She's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I didn't do much, honestly. All the credit for this great and wonderful show belongs to only two people. The first to Frank Warner, who wrote it. And secondly to the one and only Evan Warner, his son, who had the courage of his own convictions and who believed not only in his father, but in us, the people. Without either of them to show us the way, this show would never have played. And it gives me the greatest of pleasure tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to present to you the guiding star, the one who was always behind me in this glorious venture, Evan Warner. Just a minute. Come up here, Evan. Come up here where you've always belonged.
Warren William will be back in just a moment to tell you the rest of the probate cause of So Deep the Stream. But first, here is a brief message from your announcer. And here again is Warren William as John Francis O'Connell.
The People's Theater Group is a thoroughly viral and potent influence on our lives today, thanks to Frank Warner and his son, Evan, and to Polly, Emil, and thousands of people who made it possible. Their message is the message of liberty and freedom. With Evan and Polly at the helm, you may confidently look ahead to a new movement in the theater and perhaps in the shaping of a better world. Next week, I'm going to tell you the true story about a mad miser who accumulated a pile of gold dust that was well worth over $1 million. This miser hated the thought that he would have to leave this fortune to his heirs. So he conceived a plan whereby he willed the gold to his relatives, but made sure they wouldn't have the pleasure of spending it. We call this interesting story Miser's Gold. This is Warren William inviting you to listen again next week.
Strange Wills is written by Ken Crepine and directed by Robert Webster Lake. Any similarity between names used in this story and those of living persons is purely coincidental. Strange Wills is a Teleways feature produced in Hollywood.